This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar. Hello, everybody.
Nailed it. Joined as always by our
Barth. That's a fit. That's a match.
No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's go to the downs. You got 17 of them, so hurry up. That is last week you told me you had like 6 downs.
Yeah.
How many do you have this week? I mean, this game was even worse.
I just kind of bundled them all together.
I did kind of do that.
Okay.
Did you do offense, defense, special teams?
No, I should have done that. This would have been a good week to do that.
Okay. Well, I don't even know where to start right now. I am going to pay the bills real quick though and say, hey Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota, right? Am I doing it right? Toyota.
It's a T. It's right there.
Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV. Go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots. Toyota, let's go places, and easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. Hello, everybody. Evan Lazar, Alex Barth, Patriots Catch-22, with you for the next couple of hours. And we're obviously going to talk plenty offseason. We'll talk plenty of draft. That's going to be the meat of today's show, as it will be for the next 4 or 5 months.
Get ready.
Here on Catch-22,
Get
which
ready.
I can't wait for. In sincerity, being sincere. That kind of came off like I was being sarcastic about that, but I'm
You
not.
don't love it.
I do wish that we were talking about
Right.
playoffs and competitive football.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But this is where I want to start today because I think it's important for us to still talk about what's going on in the present and what's going to happen with the direction of this football team, Alex. And I just, coming off of Saturday's game, the one feeling that I can't escape, that I keep feeling about the performance against the Chargers was that was the one thing they could not do. Like they could play a game like they played in Arizona, which was lackluster, but okay, you're just not a very good team. You're on the road, right? Like all that kind of stuff. They could have played a game like they did in Buffalo, and we'd be probably giving them flowers, right?
Yeah.
Like if they had stacked 2 games like that back to back. The one thing that this coaching staff could not afford was to get blown out, and not even just get blown out, but really just not be competitive in any phase from start to finish. And I thought after the Bills game that Gerard Mayo's job was safe. Coming off this Chargers game, I'm not saying that he should or shouldn't, but I think all options are currently on the table because of how bad it looked against a Charger team, which seems to have its bleep together. And you can kind of see the compare and contrast of a well-coached, well-oiled machine with the Chargers, who aren't blowing doors off of every team, right? They had just played a close game against the Broncos the week before.
In the week before that, was it the week before, 2 weeks before, they got wrecked by Tampa.
Yeah.
That was in the last month. I know that.
So they're not a wagon. We're not if the Bills had done what the Chargers did, I think I would have felt differently.
If you flip the 2 games, it's more or less what I was expecting from those 2 games, just backwards.
Right.
Play the Chargers close, tight. Maybe you lose, but you put up a fight against a team that's sort of right there in the playoff picture. And look, Buffalo's Buffalo. What's going to happen is going to happen.
Yeah.
Instead, it flipped. No, I'm with you. If we're just playing the prediction game, regardless of what we think should or shouldn't happen, we've both kind of said, like, yeah, they're probably going to run it back. That was the first game.
Right.
Kind of came away from and said, maybe not.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I just, what I keep coming back to as well is, okay, so you decide that you've committed to Gerard Mayo and you feel as though he is going to grow on the job and all that kind of stuff. And it is a little, I don't want to call it unfair because it's professional sports, but you had to have known that he was going to have some growing pains as really a guy coming into this very, very green for the position, right? So you had to have known that this was going to sort of be a multi-year build for Gerard Mayo here. But at the same time, it just is hard to envision, like, how do you rearrange the deck chairs here underneath Gerard Mayo to then make it better next year is hard to envision. Like, the way to do it, I suppose, would be to move on from one of the coordinators, but now you're scapegoating a coordinator who probably doesn't deserve it, to be honest, especially on offense, in my opinion, and Alex Van Pelt doesn't deserve to be scapegoated, but a head has to roll for going 3-14 or 4-13, whatever it ends up being. And I don't know how that changes anything really at the core of it. If all you're doing is we're going to let go of DeMarcus Covington and we're going to bring in a more experienced, a more seasoned defensive coordinator on that side of the ball. I'll give a name, let's say the Giants, let's say they clean house and Patrick Graham becomes available. Maybe you bring in Patrick Graham, who's called a defense, who's run a defense, who's been a successful coordinator in different areas. But then at the same time, it's like, okay, but you still need the head coaching to significantly improve, even if the coordinators are a little bit more stable underneath him. And it feels like a lot of gymnastics to try to avoid the doomsday scenario.
The whole thing with that Bills game was you just wanted to see some sort of progress from this coaching staff this year. Like you said, it might be a multi-year thing, but you can't just have a bad year one throughout and then expect to jump without any evidence in year two. And the Bills game is this the start of that late season push? And instead it looks like more likely than not it was a blip.
Yeah.
It was an anomaly. And that's where you look at Gerard Mayo, because if he's going to be the CEO head coach, it is all about development, not just of the players, but of the coaches. And this game was a step back in that regard.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about, what actually went wrong. And then we'll do 3 up, 3 down, and then we'll get to the draft. We'll try to keep this a little bit shorter than our normal game recap, because I know that there's not a ton of
There's only so much to.
Yeah. But I think the biggest thing to look on the offensive side of the ball, when I watch their film offensively, and it's not to what's the word? It's not to make excuses for Alex Van Pelt and the coaching. Could the play calling, could the play design? I've been critical of that all year long. The play design in particular, I think, is pretty vanilla. But at the same time, you watch them try to execute the slot pass to Pop Douglas, and it turns into a horrible turnover.
Right, which, like, I love that. So what that play is supposed to be is like he's essentially tossing it to Pop Douglas, who's coming in motion, but you have Ramondre Stevenson go out the other way as eye candy.
Yeah.
I've seen that play work a ton of times. It's a very fun play. It's a good touch for Pop Douglas, all that. But if you can't execute it, you can't execute it. And this is where you have to square the two between Alex Van Pelt, understand it. You don't have the talent to run it, so maybe don't run it, but like, you could do that with a handoff and it would still work. The toss makes it a little bit better, but you can still get to the point with a handoff. And if you know you can't run it as a toss, you got to recognize that if you're Van Pelt, but also they probably don't have the talent there to run it as a toss.
Right. So it's tough. That's, I think, a great microcosm of everything on offense is that particular play, of all the issues with their offense right now, because they don't have the talent, they don't have the chemistry, whatever you want to call it, just sort of the execution to be able to pull off a play like that. But because they can't do anything that's sort of high level, they're just so basic offensively that they're easy to defend. Right. So like, it's sort of this, damned if you do, damned if you don't type of scenario. And like you said, you see teams like the Bills, teams like the Lions, teams like the Packers, like pull off plays like this all the time. It's a wing T play. It's like, it goes back like 50 years. Like they've been running these types of like veer wing T type of offense scheme since, like Navy in the 1940s, right? Like this is not new to football by any stretch of the imagination. But the Patriots don't have the ability to do it. And so I go with Van Pelt. I'm like, okay, but that's hard. Like that's hard to coordinate an offense, and and I get that there's been some criticism about him reacting too much to the media and what we're saying about the play calling, but everybody's on you to be more creative and be more innovative and be more tricky and like all these types of things. And then you try something that's a little bit creative and tricky, and it just completely backfires. Like it completely blows up in your face. And so like, what do you do if you're Van Pelt is a really good question. So basically what I'm getting at with the offense is every single week that I watch their offensive film, it's not so much that I don't think that they have a plan or like that they don't go into games with like a script and sort of a goal or landmarks of like how we are going to move the ball and how we're going to score points and how we're going to win this game. I just don't think they have the talent. Like, I just think they're very, very talent poor and all over the place, besides basically quarterback and tight end. So what are you supposed to really do?
Look, there's certainly a case to talk about the coaching staff, and I'm not saying the coaching is perfect. It's not. If we were to list the biggest issues facing the New England Patriots this season, roster talent is at the top of the list.
Number one.
There's plenty of teams in the league that have a very talented roster and an okay coach or even a bad coach that they may look good. You would probably say the Detroit Lions. I would say the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
There's also some coaches that are considered great coaches that have rosters devoid of talent, and it doesn't look very good.
Yeah.
So does there need to be changes with the coaching staff? Absolutely. None of it matters if you don't improve the talent.
Yeah.
That is issue number one, first and foremost. And if you disagree, I'd ask you to think about it this way. Would you rather run it back with the same coaches but a better roster, or the same roster but different coaches?
It's a good question. Obviously, you don't have to.
Right, and
You're
it shouldn't
hoping
be
it's better
either.
and better.
Both should be improved. But give me the better roster all day.
Yeah.
It's the players on the field that ultimately decide the game.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I'm not trying to shield Alex Van Pelt to blame or make excuses for him, but when I watch their tape offensively, I just don't. I'm running out of ideas of like, okay, what could they really do differently? Like, they can't run block, they can't pass protect for very long. Like, people are criticizing him of not giving the tackles a lot of help in pass protection, but they don't have the capability of running like 2-man routes because they don't have guys that get open.
Right.
So like if you're running a 2-man route, then you're trying to set up a one-on-one matchup for somebody by doing that max protect 2-man route. You're thinking post safety single high. So someone's going to get the safety and someone's going to be one-on-one, but you consistently need that player to be able to win one-on-one. They don't have that. So they put everybody in the pattern to try to stretch out the field and try to make the defense at least cover everything, right? So like I continue to just kind of see that offensively. Now, defensively, I still think they're not playing to their talent level on defense.
Agree.
I still believe that they're a better defense than what they've shown talent-wise, and the main reason to me is a lack of fundamentals on the defensive side of the ball. I will continue to say this over and over again. If you tackle well, if you play with good angles, good leverage, if you play with good fundamentals and technique on the line of scrimmage, you can just be a good defense by trying hard. Like, not a great defense. Like, you're probably not going to be top 10 in the league by just being locked in and having effort and all those kinds of things. But I think it's true in almost any sport that if you are a fast pursuit, relentless, good, like tough, physical, fundamentally sound defense, I still think that you're better than 30th in the league in DVOA on defense just with that alone. Yeah. And they don't do that. They don't play that way. They're constantly pulled out and drawn out of coverage areas. They're constantly, not their run fits and their tackling and all that kind of stuff is just, it's totally fallen off and totally fallen apart. So you look at all these things, and I still think that they are playing below their talent level on defense. And schematically, like, Greg Roman's a good offensive coordinator. I don't think that Greg Roman is a great pass game coordinator. He's a very, very good run game coordinator. This game, they made Greg Roman in the pass game look like he was like, just unstoppable, right? So it wasn't the run game. If they were getting torched by like, Roman's like run designs like that we've seen in Baltimore and San Francisco and now at the Chargers, I would say, okay, Greg Roman did his thing this week. This was pass game stuff. Like, this was, we know you guys are going to be in man-to-man, and we're just going to have a bunch of man beaters. And then those times that you do play zone, like, you're not going to be good enough in zone to stop us, right? And so the fact that they don't have any sort of right hand or left-hand, excuse me. They don't have any sort of counter defensively. These teams just know they're going to play man on third down. They know they're going to get man. They know that if they run, tight splits, if they run bunch concepts, if they run pick plays, if they just do all these different things to beat man-to-man coverage that you see all around the league, they are going to find success. And just talking to some of the players after the game on Sunday, they basically said it's just really hard. Like, it's really hard to go out there and play man-to-man for 4 quarters when the other team knows you're going to be playing man-to-man. They have all these tricks and all these game plan wrinkles ready for you to play man-to-man. And my thought was, that's a coaching, like that's adjusting, right? Like that's finding other ways to go ahead and play pass defense. And I just thought that they have become very predictable. Now, could you sit there and say that's talent, that they don't have guys that can play man and zone and things like, I guess, but I still feel like they have better talent than what they've shown. Well,
some of that I think is tied talent. Remember, we were doing shows at the beginning of the year wondering why they weren't playing more man coverage because of the personnel. So I think that's tied to it. But at the end of the day, talent's talent.
Yeah. I last thing on the defense, I would just say,
wasn't this supposed to be ups and downs?
Oh, we're going to do it right now.
Okay.
But I just wanted to wrap this up. Put a bow on this little takedown of this entire game on Sunday or Saturday. Do you realize how much they've struggled to pressure their quarterback? I
think this was another game where they had they had one quarterback hit and it was a penalty. It was a really bad penalty.
Yeah, so they are now 30th in the league in team pressure rate. I'm actually surprised it's not 32nd. Like, I don't watch every single defense, every single snap of every single defense.
No, that is surprising.
I don't even know what those other teams are doing. But one of the things that has really stood out to me is their inability to manufacture pressure. Remember when they traded Matthew Judon? The big quote was, we've done this in the past where we've manufactured pressure without a Chandler Jones or a Matthew Judon or a stud pass rusher, and we've been able to get away with it. So last season under Bill and Steve Belichick, they were first in the league in unblocked pressure rate, creating free runners at the quarterback. Number 1 in the league, 9.8% of the time they were able to generate a free runner. That has basically been cut in half this year. They're at 5.1%. They're 24th in the league this season. So that, again, that's all scheme, right? And in the very first third down of the game, they blitz Gonzo on a boundary blitz. And the Chargers just blocked it. Like, it was just like...
They just picked it up.
They just picked it up. Like, it was totally and completely ineffective. Like, the back just picked up Gonzo, stood him up, no pressure on Herbert. He had a picnic back there and made a throw and converted and moved the chains. That has been alarming to me, too, is the fact that they have no sort of schematic ability to get after the quarterback in any sense of the word. And I get, like, you wish that you could just do it with a 4-man rush. Their 4-man rush, they have the fewest sacks generated in the league from a 4-man rush. They've only sacked the quarterback 14 times.
I'm surprised that high.
All year with the 4-man rush. It's last in the league. So they can't really just rush 4 and get home. That's for sure. But they also haven't done a really great job of manufacturing pressure as well. So if it is this coaching staff and they are back next year, that has to be the number one question. Okay, we could go out and draft Abdul Carter and throw a bag at, pass rushers in free agency or something like that, and maybe just upgrade the talent and hope that improves. But to me, it's more complicated than that. They have to figure out why are disguised rushes, like our blitzes, our simulated pressures, things like that. Like, why did those not work? Like, do we have a tell? It almost feels like they have a tell. And I'm not, like, advanced enough to figure out what the tell is, but, like, it almost feels like they have a tell because every single time they run one of these, like, simulated pressures or creepers or whatever, those disguised rushes, it just gets blocked. So, like, something is telling the offense that this is coming. I don't know what, but I have a big feeling that they have a tell.
I can see it.
3 up, 3 down. What are your... Do you have any ups? How many ups?
I do have 2 ups.
I have 2 ups as well.
Okay. Number 1 is Cole Strange.
Okay.
Now, he wasn't perfect in this game. He certainly wasn't perfect, but he never even started a game at center in college.
Yeah.
So to come into the NFL against a good defensive front that the Chargers have, he didn't have any bad snaps. He did have the one that was early, late in the game. And he was called for an illegal man downfield at one point. But, again, for a guy starting his first game ever at center at this level, it certainly could have been a lot worse. And also a guy coming back from what was a very serious knee injury. He was starting his first game at center in his first game back from a very significant knee injury. Hadn't played in over a year. Didn't have that many practices to get ready for this game. It certainly could have been, maybe should have been a lot worse. I was very impressed with what Cole Strange did. Does that mean he's the center of the future after David Andrews? I don't know. I need to see a little more. But realistically, as good of a start as you could ask for from Cole Strange in that center role.
Yeah, I thought he looked the part of the position. I didn't think he was looked completely overwhelmed or out of place or anything like that. Now, there were definitely some issues with blitz pickups and protections and things like that. I mean, how many times is Derwin James just going to come in unblocked, right? Like there has to be ways that they can be better in that regard with Cole Strange, making the calls and things like that. I would venture to say that there were probably some errors there by the pre-snap processing of blitz pickup and protections and things like that. And, in the run game, I still felt like there were times where he was getting out-muscled by the DTs on the Chargers. But I agree. Those were like sort of my nitpicks, I guess, of this game for him. But overall, I thought that it was encouraging. Like, let's see what this looks like after a full off-season and training camp. And just looking at David Andrews' injury history, love David Andrews, but he's had a lot of injuries at this point. Yeah. I don't know if David Andrews is going to come back next year and be the same guy. And I don't know if we're going to be in a situation where we're 2 weeks into training camp and he kind of realizes that he doesn't have it anymore. Right. Like, I hope that's not the case, but you have to prepare for that outcome. And maybe Cole Strange is the backup plan there.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, we'll see what he does on Sunday, but at the very least, you have an option. I would still like to see them take a center maybe on day 3, because even if Cole Strange is the guy, you now need his backup.
Right.
But it was... he looked good for what it was. I was impressed for what that was.
Yeah. Okay. My number one up in this game was Anthony Jennings. I did 2 up. I did one on offense, 1 on defense. Anthony Jennings, I thought, was the one guy that kind of came to play on the defense. Had those 2 run stuffs early in the game, very first play of the game, stuffed a run to try to set the tone a little bit. I also had him with 4 quarterback pressures in this game. I thought this was a nice bounce-back game for him after he struggled a little bit in Buffalo. And, I think he's a solid player for them. Do I think he's a game changer? No, but I think that he has a role in the defense in the NFL, setting the edge, playing first and second down, and they have something in that respect.
That's my other up.
Okay. My other up was just Demario Douglas, because the touchdown was the only offensive play they made all day, and it was really him. Like, not to take anything away from Drake May, but he made the adjustment.
It's a hell of a catch. I'll give Drake May and Cole Strange get some credit too for getting that free play, getting the snap off. It's an unreal catch. I was tempted to put Douglas. Who do you put the fault on the blown pitch play? Is it Douglas for not getting to the spot in time, or May for putting the toss 2 out in front of him?
I would put it mostly on May.
Okay.
I don't think it was a great toss, and I am with you that in terms of the design of the play, I didn't love that it was a toss to begin with.
Yeah.
So the Bills ran it as a toss on the goal line to Khalil Shakir, but I don't know if it was supposed to be a toss. It might have just ended up being a toss because it just didn't hit exactly how they wanted it to hit, kind of similarly to this one. The Lions always run this play as a handoff. It's a straight handoff.
So most of the time when I see that play as a toss, it's at the college level.
Yeah.
And it's a little easier to do because you run it, you motion the guy from the short side so he's not coming as far from the sideline with the hashes being further out. I'm trying to remember if I've seen it as a toss in the NFL. I was trying to find it. Sure, I have, but in the NFL, that's usually a handoff play.
Yeah, I thought that it should have been a handoff play, and it didn't sound like it was ever supposed to be a handoff play. Like, I think that was a toss all the way. Yeah. So, I didn't put it on Douglas, and I thought, again, that his touchdown catch and the adjustment that he made and the catch that he made was an incredible catch, and it was really the only offensive highlight of the game. So, there you go. All right, to the downs.
So my biggest issue in this game was the situational defense.
Yeah.
10 of 17 on third down. The Chargers, 10 of 17 on third down. They were good in the red zone. They were good in the 2-minute. The defense wasn't good overall in this game, but it felt like every single potential pivot moment, you saw some of the worst performances they had throughout the afternoon.
Yeah.
And that goes to coaching. So that was the biggest thing that stood out to me. There's been a lot made about the time of possession. Patriots had the ball for under 20 minutes. By the way, it's their second such game this year. It's the first time since at least the 80s that's happened.
Yeah.
And a lot of people looked at that as the offense. And look, the offense couldn't stay on the field, certainly.
Yeah.
But some of that was the defense couldn't get off it either. There were some long drives in that game from the Chargers. The situational defense was just not there.
Yeah, I looked some of this up. I'm not a big time of possession guy, as you could probably imagine.
Well, how about the Chargers ran 77 plays?
Yeah.
That's an absurd. Now, as I'm saying it, I want to double check to make sure I'm right.
The Patriots' defensive film was 30 minutes.
70.
That's never a good sign.
That's insane.
I mean, offense. Sorry.
You don't have teams that run 77 plays in an overtime game.
Yeah. So
it's insane.
When you look at time of possession, I think the reason why I'm not big on time of possession sometimes is just because of the context, right, of why you're on the field and why you're not.
That's why I think play disparity fits a little. So for the disparity's point, Chargers ran 77 plays. It's not like it was a quick game.
Yeah.
Patriots ran 48.
Yeah. So last year, it felt like the Patriots defense was on the field a lot because of the offense. Because they were good on third down last year. I think they were ninth in the league, I want to say, on third down in 23. Like they were, it wasn't because they were letting teams extend drives all the time, right? This year, both have been a problem. The offense can't stay on the field, and the defense can't get off of it. The defense right now is bottom third of the league in third down. I want to say they're 24th, or one of them's 24th and one of them's 27th. I don't know which one's red zone and which one's third down. Off the top of my head. So basically, they're not good on third down on defense. So now the problem is that the offense can't sustain drives, but also the defense can't get off the field. So some of this time of possession stuff is self-inflicted for the defense this year. Maybe you couldn't say that in 22 and 23, but this year this is definitely some self-inflicted stuff on the defensive side. I went with a couple of players, and then I had one like what you just did.
Yeah.
But number one down for me in this game is Jonathan Jones. I mean, I hate to pick on Jonathan Jones because I love Jonathan Jones, but 8 catches, 91 yards, gave up a touchdown. McConkey just was too good for him. Like, he was just outclassed by McConkey in this game. That does not bode well to me for John Jones long term. I know he was really good against Shakir. He deserves his flowers for that. I gave him to him last week. But it seems like this has been more of what we've gotten from John Jones this year than the Shakir game kind of felt like an outlier a little bit for him. And as we start to talk about the draft and the offseason, I don't know how you go into next year with Jonathan Jones and Marcus Jones as your number 2 and number 3 corners. I think you need to upgrade the number 2 cornerback spot and put the Joneses back in the slot. Like if that to me, Jonathan Jones at this point is probably more of like a safety corner. Like he's probably like a nickel or a dime safety corner. And, maybe plays a little bit in the deep part of the field a little more next year if he's back. I don't know if his days of I'm going to take this guy in man-to-man coverage for 4 quarters, I don't know if that is in him anymore. I think we might have moved past that stage of his career. So just from a bigger picture standpoint, not to pick so much on John Jones, I feel like cornerback 2 is now right on the list. Put it right in the top 5.
Yeah, it's a major need. I agree with you.
Yeah. All right, number 2.
Kyle Duggar.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have him on every week at this point, and
it is what it
I
is.
get he's battling through something, but he just there continues to be missed tackles, missed coverage assignments, like a couple times a game where he is like it kind of seems like teams are targeting him now.
Yeah.
To try to take advantage of him, and you hope it's just the ankle and he comes back next year looking more like the guy he was in 2023, but this version of him he can't play the role they need him to play.
So his eyes are the problem to me right now, and that's why I'm sure that some of the recovery is being affected by the ankle. I mean, like, recovering when you fall step or you're a little bit out of position. Some of that is probably due to physical issues, but right now his eyes just seem to constantly be in the wrong places in the passing game. And he was a part of 2 touchdowns in this game where I just felt like his eyes are just not in the right places. McConkey runs a really nifty route on the short touchdown that he scored down in the red zone. I don't know if I've necessarily seen that route before out of that sort of look. So they kind of mimicked crossers, down in the red zone. And then he pivoted out of his crosser. It was pretty cool. It was a great route. So that one I don't necessarily kill Duggar for because that's just a fantastic route and a really nice play design. by the Chargers. That to me goes back to the Chargers saw on film, okay, the Patriots in the red zone are going to switch off these crossers, right? They're going to be in man-to-man, and when the crosser runs across the field, he's going to pass it off to this free safety and then replace the free safety. So they showed like McConkey was running, the defender dropped off McConkey, and then McConkey went back out the other way.
Right.
So that to me is coaching. Like that was a game planned wrinkle or play that the Chargers had ready for how the Patriots handle crossers in the low red zone. So I don't necessarily put that as much on Duggar as I put it on Mayo and Covington, but the McConkey 40-yard touchdown, I'm not 100% sold that what coverage they were in, because Duggar's eyes are in the backfield the entire time. And he's like reading it almost like he's in zone, like a hook or something like that over the middle of the field. And then John Jones opens like he has inside help, and then McConkey just runs right by him. And I don't know if Duggar was supposed to help. I don't know if John Jones just got beat. I kind of settled more towards John Jones just got beat, but like, again, it's just Duggar's eyes are just locked into the backfield on the quarterback, and he has no like spatial awareness of like that there's a receiver running right by him.
Right.
And the same thing happened on the crossing route early in the game by Davis, where Austin thought he was passing and Duggar just was not ready to pick it up. So right now, to me, this is mental. Like he's in a mental pretzel back there. Yep. And I think that for the Patriots moving forward, I hate to keep adding needs to the list, but like free safety, he's not a free safety.
You know where I've been on this. Like they moved on from Devin McCourty with zero plan. Well, other than we're going to play guys out of position.
Yeah, we're going to play like Peppers and Duggar.
That was their plan at left tackle. That's been their plan at so many positions. We're just going to play players we trust out of position. But just because you trust a guy doesn't mean he can play every position on the field. So they need to find like – I was texting about this guy the other night. You know how high I am on this guy, have been since his draft.
Yeah.
They need to find their Kirby Joseph.
Yeah, he's a good player.
Because that guy's a difference maker.
It just feels like they were banking on being interchangeable. Like they were going to be. They're probably thinking we're going to go into more too high, post snap rotation. We're going to start in too high. We're going to rotate, and they thought we could rotate either Duggar or Peppers into the box. So because of that, we were going to be a little bit more disguise heavy. We're going to be a little bit more deceptive of, okay, we could rotate either way. So now you have to account for the fact that you don't really know which way they're going. But at the end of the day, somebody's got to play up top, and somebody's got to be up top on third down, and someone's going to end up top. And can that player play back there consistently well? And I just don't think Kyle Duggar has been able to do that. And teams know it. Teams are now just hunting him. All right, number 3.
Where'd I go? Here. I went in the wrong order. I thought we were doing players. Offensive, situationally. Again, same thing. 2 for 10 on third downs. The few times they got in the red zone, they couldn't get it going. Just the situational football in this one was not there. It was not good.
Yeah, fair enough. Number 3 for me, I kind of went over it already with the pass rush stuff. A 19% pressure rate. I think they had 9 pressure dropbacks on 41 attempts, or 41 dropbacks by Justin Herbert. Just nowhere near him. And this wasn't a mush rush, compact the quarterback, compact the pocket, keep the quarterback in the pocket. They came after him. They blitzed him 13 times, and they did not get home. The guy, on 13 blitzes, they had 1 pressure on 13 blitzes. Think about that.
That's ridiculous.
They pressured him 1 time. They blitzed him 13 times. That was way more than they blitzed Josh Allen, way more than they blitzed Kyler Murray. Like, this was not we're going to keep the quarterback in the pocket game. They wanted to rush Justin Herbert. They couldn't get to him. That's the bottom line. And their pass rush just continues to crater. All right, do you have any more? I have one more.
Go ahead.
So I did put Drake May on here. This was my worst graded game for Drake May. Now, out of everybody involved in this entire organization, the one guy I'm going to absolve sometimes right now is the rookie quarterback. Like, there's a lot wrong with the situation around Drake May. But I had him with minus 10 negative plays. I had him with a turnover play, obviously, on the toss, whatever the heck that was supposed to be, on the play to Pop Douglas. I just thought in this game, though, what bothered me a little bit about the way he played, I thought he was a little bit premature, like leaving the pocket. I thought he left the pocket early a handful of times. He said only once on the play he got his bell rung on. That was part of it. But even like the Derwin James 15-yard sack on 4th and 2, him rolling to his right and trying to run away from the pressure felt very Caleb Williams to me, right? Like, just didn't really see it pre-snap, was caught a little bit off guard by it. All he had to do, he had Antonio Gibson in the flat, like right behind the blitz. Like all he had to do was hit the back hot out of the blitz, right? And I don't want to see him develop bad habits. That's the last thing I want to see him do. And some of these, the teams now are just kind of recognizing that he's going to leave the pocket if you invite him to leave the pocket.
Right.
And so they kind of are on to him about it. And this is one thing that I'm going to nitpick him on. Like, he's got to play quarterback in these situations from the pocket. If they're going to blitz him and they're going to make him hot and they're going to charge him up, like, he's got to beat them with throwing the football. Like, make a quick, decisive decision and get the football out. I thought there was 3 or 4 times in this game where he had options against the blitz and just kind of froze on the last Derwin James sack, and then the other ones was just kind of running around. And I don't want to see him doing that often. So that was that.
Yeah, not one of his better games. I just felt like there was too much going on around him to put him on the downs. But
yeah, totally fair. All right, do you have any more?
No, that's it.
Okay, so let's do off season. Let's talk about this game on Sunday a little bit too. Not about the strategy of X's and O's of how they're gonna take down the Bills' backups, but where do you stand on?
Well, I have one thought on that.
Okay.
And I've been excited to give this take this week because I think it's a fun take.
Okay.
Everybody's talked about, and Alex Van Pelt said today Drake May is going to start, which, by the way, he should. I think I'm in the minority on this. I'm curious to hear what you think of this.
Okay.
I'm okay that Drake May is starting this game. Frankly, I think he should start this game. I think it's important to the Patriots organization that he starts this game.
Fair enough.
I would do exactly what the Bills are doing.
Yeah.
Play him for a series, maybe 2, mostly handoffs, take him out. But I would do it for the same reason the Bills are doing it. And I'm giving the Bills credit, Evan, so you know I feel strongly about this. Drake May, we want Drake May to be face of the franchise, one of the faces of the league, elite starting quarterback, right?
Yep.
What do elite starting quarterbacks do more than anything else? They start games.
Play football.
They play football. They start games. They have Brady's starting streak. Peyton Manning had that long starting streak. That's why Allen's doing it. Let's say Drake May becomes like awesome in 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Don't we want to kind of be hyping up how many games in a row he has to do a better job of protecting himself as part of this, but it's going to be weird if we have to be like, he started almost every game, but there was that one at the end of the year in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And I think that matters to Drake May because I think Drake May wants to be viewed like a guy like Josh Allen. So if Josh Allen's going to start this game, if the Bills can risk Josh Allen for one series in order to extend his streak, if we want Drake May to have that same standing, start Drake May. I feel strongly about this.
I like it. I have no problem with them starting Drake May.
I have no problem with it. Part 2 of the take.
Uh-oh.
Everybody is acting like if Joe Milton plays, the Patriots automatically lose the game.
Are you offended because he's your guy?
Well,
you are. You are a little bit.
First of all, for that to happen, you also have to...
You became famous because of your Joe Milton line.
I know. First of all, you also have to have people... Like, the defense has to do their part, right?
Yeah.
So I go back to, and I've had fun bringing this name up all week.
Yeah.
Matt Flynn.
Yeah.
Matt Flynn in 2011. Now, it was the opposite situation. The Packers were in the playoffs. They were where the Bills are. They didn't want to risk Aaron Rodgers. They put in Matt Flynn to make his second career start. Do you know what his first career start was?
Against the Patriots, wasn't it?
Do you know what game?
The
what
Dan
that game's
Connolly
famous?
game.
There you go,
Yeah,
Dan Connolly game.
course,
He was fine in that game. He was
Yeah.
fine. That was his 3rd year in the league. 4th year in the league. He makes his second start, Week 17 against the Detroit Lions. Think about some of the quarterbacks the Packers have had.
Yeah.
Matt Flynn set every single, all of the major single-game passing records for the Green Bay Packers, 480
Remember
yards.
the contract he got from it?
6 touchdowns
Yeah.
against the Lions. Now, he was a free agent. Joe Milton's not. He got what at the time was a significant contract. The Seahawks are ready to name him the starter.
Yeah.
Now, he lost out to a 3rd-round pick named Russell Wilson in training camp, then bounced around. He was even here at one point. But, who's to say this isn't a showcase game for Joe Milton?
Sure.
This is the Packer way. This is the Elliott Wolf thing.
It's a 4th preseason
Right.
game.
You draft all these quarterbacks with the idea that you can't have too many. If you end up with a good one, they're worth something. You can trade them.
Yeah.
So I don't know why we're all just assuming Joe Milton's going to go out there and be terrible.
Yeah.
And by the way, he can be good and the Patriots can still lose the game. We talked about the issues with the defense. Mitchell Trubisky's a backup, but was it Paul or Fred who said earlier, he's not exactly a low-level backup.
He's kind of bad.
You compare to some of the other backups in the league.
Fair enough.
Right? Is he a top 40 quarterback in the league?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
I'd put him top 40. He's or 42. I think he's one of the 10 best backups in the league.
Okay.
Right?
Fair enough.
So, I'm just saying, Don't write off Joe Milton.
Fair enough. I'm not writing off Joe Milton. I also think that there's absolutely zero tape on Joe Milton. The Bills will have no idea what the Patriots might actually do with Joe Milton. So I think
even when you
that.
have tape on Joe Milton, he can still be kind of unpredictable.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, it could be a little unpredictable, right? When you have a quarterback like that that's not played a single snap all year. But I would start Drake May in this game, or don't have a problem. I don't know where I fall on this, but this is where I kind of want it to go. Anyways, like, how should they approach this game is really the only story with this game.
Right.
And I can't stress this enough. They're not going to tank guys. They're not going to sign some quarterback off the street
right.
and play him on Sunday to purposely lose this
They're not
game.
going to be, all right, we're down 4 with 10 seconds to go. Let's kick a field goal.
Yeah. They're not going to purposely lose the game. Okay? Could they just lose it outright? We've seen them lose 13
it's very possible. It's very possible. But no, you're not, especially because you got to remember, for these players, they're either trying to, when teams evaluate players, they significantly weight games at the end of the year more than they weight the games at the beginning. They're not going to care about the circumstances in this game when they do that, especially for guys who are pending free agents or maybe aren't a lock to be back here next year. They want to put out good tape because they want to keep their jobs in the NFL. The same for the coaches. It's Gerard Mayo coaching for his job. It's Alex Van Pelt coaching for his job. They're not. Why would they help an organization get the first overall pick when they don't know if they'll be part of that organization when they make that pick?
Yeah.
There's no incentive there. The only one who has any incentive, it's the general manager on up. Now, if Gerard Mayo's been told his job is safe, that could factor in a little bit. If he knows no matter what happens, you're good. We want the pick. That's another conversation. But it doesn't happen. Tanking does not happen on a game day level.
I just think that is such a terrible look. Like, to your point, let's say they get the ball back with like a minute and a half to go within one score, and they just kneel it out.
It's not going to happen.
Right. It's not happening. You can't do that.
And you know what? It shouldn't. I don't, do you want people in your organization that are not invested solely in winning games? You want apex competitors. I go back to the scene in The Last Dance of Michael Jordan at the end of that last game of his rookie year where they try to take him off the floor because they're trying to get a better draft pick, and he's losing his mind because he's like, we have a game to win today.
Yeah.
What are you talking about the draft?
Yeah.
So, those are the kind of competitors you want. I think Drake may kind of be wired that way, which is part of the reason I would let him get the start, even if it's ceremonial. But, yeah, that's not going to happen. Now, that being said, the stakes themselves, I heard you talking about this earlier. When it comes to the first overall pick.
Well, let's get to that in a second.
Okay, all right.
Last thing on this point of it, I've gone back and forth on how much Drake May should play in this game because my biggest fear in the way that things have gone in the last couple of years for the Patriots, always thinking worst case scenario, frankly. My biggest fear is that there's, I heard, on your station a lot about like, well, he has all off season to get to like recover from an injury.
Yeah.
Okay, if he gets nicked up in the game and he has a hand, his hand, he stubs a finger, sure, he has plenty of time to get over that. What happens if he blows out his knee?
Right.
What happens if he tears an Achilles?
That's the kind of injury we're talking about.
What happens if he separates his shoulder and now he can't throw for 4 months, right? Like what those types of things are derailing to an entire offseason that I fear. I worry about because this is a huge offseason for his development. This is the year 2 leap. Right. He should be in the lab working with his whoever it is, Clyde Christensen or whoever he decides to work with in the offseason. That's who he worked with pre-draft and down at North Carolina, so I assume it would be the same. He is supposed to be in the gym, working out. He's supposed to be throwing. He's supposed to be working on his craft. He's supposed to be working with receivers and having passing camps and things like that with the receivers away from the facility. If he isn't able to do all those things, and God forbid if he's at all limited in training camp next year, that is very detrimental to your 2025 season.
Massively.
It could be detrimental to his whole career. I don't want it to be hyperbolic about it, but it could. It could literally derail a lot of his development. So that I have big, big fears about. But to segue, what I don't have necessarily as big of a fear about, and I think we might disagree a little bit on this, I am not as gung-ho or like married or inclined to need the number 1 overall pick. I don't in this particular year.
So
if there was a Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, level quarterback
Jeremiah
prospect,
Smith,
well, in a couple of years, if there was that level of quarterback prospect where you knew definitively that you were going to get an absolute, Andrew Luck, that you were going to get an absolute haul for the number 1 overall pick, I'd feel very, very differently. But I don't feel as though this is this draft. Even if you do get the number 1 overall pick and you do get a partner to trade down with, I don't think it's going to be at the same level. I think it's going to be a discounted sale. Now, we'll get to that in a second because I'd still do it.
Yeah.
I'd still do it. But I don't think that you're going to get – I don't even think you're going to get what the Bears got from Carolina a couple years ago.
I think you will. We're close to it just because it is the first overall pick. It does have inherent value. And at the end of the day, you don't need every team to love the top quarterback on the board to give you a haul.
Teams
no,
too.
you don't. No,
yeah,
you don't.
Do.
No, you just need one team and a really good negotiator.
No, you absolutely need multiple teams.
You need one team and a really good negotiator.
You at least need the facade of multiple teams.
How many teams were – do you remember how many teams were clamoring to get up for Bryce Young? It was like 3.
Okay, but that creates a market. Like if there's only one team, let's say the only team that has any interest in drafting Shedeur Sanders in the top 10 is the Vegas Raiders for obvious reasons. He's spent all over it, right? Like that he wants to go to Vegas. Then
you look at it and you say that because the Raiders are at 8 right now.
Yeah.
This is what it cost for 9 a couple years ago. Pay up. And if the Raiders say we won't, say fine. You're not going to have a quarterback.
How do you know that they're not going to have a quarterback though? Like
Shedeur's not falling to 9. If they don't,
why not?
Because you think Shedeur is going to fall to 9? You think we're going to go 8 picks without a quarterback? I'm sorry, this is bugging the crap out of me. It's not 2022.
I think
these guys are not Kenny Pickett. Shedeur Sanders is such a better prospect than Kenny Pickett was.
I think he's better.
He's a lot closer to Bryce Young than he is to Kenny Pickett.
I'm not giving up anything for Shedeur Sanders.
He's a lot.
If I'm the Vegas Raiders,
these teams are so dumb about quarterbacks.
I hear you, but if I'm the Vegas Raiders, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't put a package together. But if I'm the Vegas Raiders, I'm putting together a realistic package, not what people want from a Patriots angle, not multiple first-round picks into the future. I'm putting together a realistic package, and I'm saying to the Patriots, if you don't want to take the deal, we're going to roll the dice. Make the Giants take them second overall.
So, all right, you want to talk about the Giants?
Because I think the Giants are going to do something different if they keep Dable. I do.
That clip of... It's Shane, right? Joe Shane?
Yeah.
That clip of Joe Shane essentially hanging up on Elliott Wolf last year Elliott Wolf hanging up on Joe Shane with the offer for Drake May. And Elliott Wolf was 1,000,000% right to do that.
Yeah.
In New York Giants land, that clip is like Buckner, the ball going through Buckner's legs in 86 to Red Sox fans. Joe Shane has had to eat that clip from fans, from the media all year. If I'm the Patriots...
Because he didn't offer enough to make
Because he didn't offer enough to make the trade.
I don't think anything was going to make him make the trade.
And I don't think so either.
Like, obviously,
I don't think so either.
He said if it was, 2, 3 threes, 3 twos, 3 3,
right.
It would have to have been something crazy.
But there's still a frustration that wasn't made. And we know NFL teams are reactive to public perception. That clip... no team should ever do off-season hard knocks ever again. That clip is going to sort of be the obituary when the Giants move on from him. That is going to be a big part of it.
The Saquon one is worse.
The Saquon one is
worse. The
owner's
saying that he's never going to sleep again if Saquon goes to the Eagles, and then he goes to the Eagles.
That
was worse.
But the point being, like, if I'm the Patriots, I'm reminding everybody, you want to risk passing on him? You want to risk your job passing on the guy?
I'm not telling the Patriots they shouldn't try.
I just think it's nuts. I don't know. My theory, and I don't mean to kind of be an a-hole about it, I think there's a certain group of Patriots fans that want Travis Hunter so bad, but know it's kind of an irresponsible pick, that their argument is to prove that no pick is good and there's nothing else the Patriots can do, so they have to take Hunter. And I think that's kind of where this quarterback stuff is coming from. Shedeur Sanders is a legitimate top 5 quarterback prospect. I think Cam Ward is a legitimate top 5 quarterback prospect.
I haven't heard a single person that like a single draft, analyst that does it year round. Like Dane Brugler is saying that he'd have been quarterback 7 for him in last year's draft.
Where did Dane Brugler have J.J. McCarthy?
I don't remember, but
high.
Okay, but they all had him high.
And where'd he go?
Okay, Matt Miller just released his first round grades. He has 12 of them this year. He said he doesn't have a lot. Neither quarterback is on there.
That's crazy. Shedeur Sanders last year before Dion kind of started talking about he was going back to school, when we were really talking about Shedeur Sanders in that class, He was QB4, if not QB3.
Okay, so you're going to take a guy that you're going to take that guy number 1 overall, not just number 1 overall. You're going to trade up and you're going to give up a bunch of picks.
Yes, because teams are nuts about the quarterback position.
But that's truly not.
So what happened? What happened between last year and this year that Shedeur Sanders suddenly worse? Because he got better. He got better
I don't
between
think he's
this.
worse.
I don't know why everybody
he is who he is. Like
So then what was he last year? Because it's night and day how he was talked about last year and he's being talked about now, and it doesn't line up with the product on the field. I think everybody just wants to take their weird victory lap that this draft class sucks. Is it a great class? No, it's not. But that doesn't mean there's 0 good players in it, and that seems to be everybody's argument, that you'd be better off just not picking a player this year.
And it's
mind-blowing to me.
I didn't say that. I didn't say you're better off not picking a player. I do think you have to be selective in a draft like this because there's a lot of guys that, in my opinion, are low ceiling, maybe high floor, but low ceiling players. And you don't want to pick a guy 1-1 overall who's like at best is going to be like a functional NFL starter.
Look,
right?
I'm glad the Patriots didn't punt on quarterback last year. I would not want to deal with this quarterback class if I was the team.
Yeah.
But there are general managers, there are coaches out there that need a quarterback to save their jobs. That is the nature of the position in this league.
But it's not just saving your job because you're willing. It's not just taking the quarterback. I believe that Shedeur Sanders will go in the top 10. But first of all, if I'm the Giants at 2, I'm probably strongly considering like a Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith type of approach where I might look in the veteran market at a Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Or I might call Minnesota and ask if J.J. McCarthy is available.
So, all right, let me ask you about this. Schefter said yesterday on ESPN, J.J. McCarthy is worth a first plus. What's worth more, J.J. McCarthy or the first pick in the draft?
In this year, it might be J.J. McCarthy.
How is a guy who was ranked behind Sanders last year and has since only torn his ACL?
Who's ranking him behind Sanders?
I remember what the consensus was last year when Sanders dropped out. We were talking about Sanders in the same breath as May and Daniels.
No, we weren't.
Yes, we were.
No, we
there
weren't.
were people
We're gonna
talking
have to
about
roll the tape. Who was talking about him in the same breath as May and Daniels?
I remember those. It was
certainly in the McCarthy Knicks. Like, you want to make the argument that he was quarterback 4 next year or last year if you put him in last year's class. I'm willing to let you make that argument. Like, you would put him ahead of Penix.
Yeah, everybody at Penix is a second-round pick. Do you not remember this?
You were the one that didn't, so I'm trying to give you credit.
I know, and this is me telling you, I have have I not been generally... Will Levis was another one. I was the one on here furious that people were talking about Will Levis as a top pick.
But these guys that you were right on, you're telling me now that Shedeur Sanders is worth the number 1 overall pick. I feel like I'm not telling
you he's worth the number 1 overall pick. I'm telling you that generally I have a pretty good understanding of how the quarterback market is going to shake out.
And I'm giving you your flowers for that, but I'm also letting you know that the film is the film, and he is not.
The film
You cannot, if you're a general manager, and again, I said, if I was the Raiders and I really fell in love with Shedeur, okay, I would offer a package to move up to number 1. I just wouldn't make the offer as good as it would have been a couple years ago for better prospects, right? Like, I wouldn't have made the same offer that the Bears made I keep doing that.
Yeah.
The Panthers made for Bryce Young. If it was like Trevor Lawrence's draft or Joe Burrow's draft or one of those situations, I wouldn't go there. Like, Joe Burrow, if like that pick was for sale for the Bengals, like that's like an RG3 type trade, right? Like, that's like 3 firsts, 2 seconds.
So I'm not necessarily saying they'll get the same, but I think they'll get something significant because, again, the league is weird about quarterbacks. They don't really look at the value of the player specifically himself. It's, I need a quarterback to save my job. Who is the best player available? That is often how the league looks at it. Shedeur Sanders is going to be
the next GM's going to kill you because you're going to go and you're going to take Shedeur Sanders. He's not going to be good enough to change the course of your franchise. And the next GM that takes over is going to have no future first-round picks because you traded.
And how many quarterbacks have been drafted in the exact scenario you just laid out?
So let me ask you this because we're arguing in circles.
Okay,
about
wait.
this
Let me
point.
make one more point, and then I'll get to the point I'm ultimately trying to get to.
Okay.
If the Patriots trade the first overall pick for less than what J.J. McCarthy goes for, they're nuts. There's no reason a guy who has one less year on his contract and just blew out his knee should be worth more than the first overall pick in the draft when the quarterback that's most likely to go there was ranked ahead of him last year when we were doing head-to-head. True or false?
I don't know if he was ranked ahead. I think that everybody's going to say that J.J. McCarthy was a better prospect.
I'm looking at right now, the last consensus big board from last year that Shadur Sanders was on had him 17th. I don't know where McCarthy was at that point, but I don't think he was 17th.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because we're going to argue for the next 6 months about this subject. Let me ask you this. What is a realistic trade that you would accept as the Patriots? Because to me, the realistic trade that I would look at is probably, obviously, you're swapping picks this year in the first round. I would get a 2025 day 2 pick, like a second or third round pick this year. On top of that, a first round pick next year, 2026 first, and maybe if you could pry it out of them, like a 2026 third, or something like that. Well, so it's basically the Panthers Bears trade without DJ Moore.
So this goes to my take about Sunday's game.
Yeah,
getting the first overall pick this year is not about this offseason. It's really about...
This is such a you take.
Just listen.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but it's just...
It's really about... Because you got to do all your film stuff all year and talk about DVOA and whatever, okay? And I mostly let you do it.
I like Sean McDonough, by the way. He's a really good
I think he's good. Tessitore was awesome yesterday.
Okay,
I know people don't like him.
No one knows what we're talking about. Okay.
Sunday is about the offseason in 2026.
Agreed.
They can do what they need to do this offseason without the first overall pick. Agree or disagree? They can have the offseason they need to have. Okay, so when you talk about a trade, obviously you're swapping picks, right? I'm getting whatever I get back. Yeah. And some of this is how far are you moving down? Are you moving to 4 or are you moving to 8, right? The next ask from me is a future first.
Yep.
That is the most important asset the Patriots can get.
Absolutely.
After that, and this is where people think maybe I'm trying to pump up the draft class more than I should. My next ask after the future first is a future second.
Okay.
I would rather have a second
in 2026.
Right.
But I think I agree with you, but isn't every GM going to know that the picks in 2026 are more valuable?
Well, the idea would be if you're drafting a quarterback, and also one other take, you might get a haul for Travis Hunter too. But if you're drafting a quarterback,
you're on crazy pills.
If you're drafting a quarterback, the idea is you're going to be better. You want to be the Commanders, right?
Yeah.
Would you rather give up the 35th pick in this draft or the 55th pick in next year's draft?
Well, and we know that this is how it works. Yeah. You might think that the player at 55 next year is going to be better than the player.
So that it comes down to that. Yeah. So run me through your trade again.
Okay. It's just basically the Bears-Panthers trade from a couple years ago for Bryce Young without DJ Moore. So it's swap your firsts, give a future first-round pick, a second-round pick this year, and a third next year.
So at that point, what I would rather do, keep the third and get a player. I would rather get a player too. Yeah.
But not living in La La Land, I don't think the value is necessarily there. Now, if you're telling me that the player you're getting back is Jacoby Myers, like a good player, but not Max Crosby.
So so when we do the Raiders, the name I've looked at is Colton Miller.
Sure, but that one I find really hard to believe that they would do.
He's a 29-year-old tackle.
He's very good, and you're drafting a rookie quarterback, and now you're not going to have a blindside protector, and you're not going to have any assets to get one.
And I think, he's entering a contract year.
Okay, but again, like, where's your left tackle coming from?
But are you going to pay a 30-year-old tackle? He's a pre-agent, right? Are you going to pay a 30-year-old tackle?
Broncos just did it with Garrett Bowles.
All right, fair enough.
Same scenario.
So I think you're right. It's first, second, first, third.
Yeah.
Honestly, to me, even if you're like, let's say it's the Giants, right? Let's say you're moving down one spot. Swap, give me next year's first. I'm done. I don't need any more picks than that.
I would like a day 2 pick. It doesn't.
I'd like it.
It doesn't have to be my full trade. Like if you only get one more day 2 back, I'm okay. I am with you though in general that I'm not saying that you roll over in negotiations, but I'm not necessarily going to be too upset, if they take a little bit of a discount because of the year, because of the draft class. I still would do it. I still think it's more important to get the package of picks than to not do it at all.
I think the prize here is the 2026. If they get that, and obviously swap. You can't move out of the first round this. And so the
Fred and I got into it about that the other day.
I don't know how far. So there's 2 trades in the last 25 years of the first overall pick.
Yeah.
One was the Bears Panthers back to 9.
Titans Rams trade.
Yeah, the Titans moved back to 15. Right.
Thank you.
I think the furthest I go back is so let's say the Raiders fall to 9, which is realistic.
Yeah.
First, second, future first, and then one of Max Crosby or Colton Miller.
Oh, that's a lot.
That's a lot, but you're moving all the way back to 9. So now you probably don't have a shot at Banks, Carter, or Campbell. If I'm going to pass on Banks, Carter, and Campbell, I need a blue chip player.
I guess I'm not totally sold that you're saying goodbye to the 2 linemen, but
at 9,
yeah,
okay,
because
I think so. Well, let me put it this way:
probably
if
at least one of them, but
if they fall that far, they're probably guards. At which point, the Patriots probably shouldn't be interested.
Maybe. I mean, like Olu Fashanu went around there last year. Like Talizia Fugawa.
But he was the 3rd tackle.
Yeah, that's the rub about this class is that there's not that talent.
So
to push them down
that's
the
why I
board.
wouldn't move that far. That's why I wouldn't move that far down unless I get like a player, right? Because if you get Colton Miller, I don't mind that I passed on Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks, right?
You're not getting Colton Miller.
I know, but that's just the point.
Yeah,
I would try to stay in that 4 to 5 range. And if it's just swap next year's first and then maybe it's give me a day 2 pick this year, next year, second, third, like whatever. You throw that in, I'd probably be good with that. The real prize is that 2025 first. 2026 first.
Yeah.
And then if you really want to get nuts and you really want to stretch this out, Evan, you have 2 firsts next year. You trade down from one of those.
Okay, we can get to that next year.
Now
wait.
I
know you want to draft
like
Jeremiah Smith. Yeah, I know.
Is Jeremiah Smith like everything you've ever wanted in a football
we have
player?
an email about it.
Is he your favorite? All right.
Yeah.
Is he already your favorite draft prospect
ever?
We'll
get to it.
I want your Jeremiah.
Okay.
Say something nice about Jeremiah Smith.
Oh man, there's too many things to say nice about Jeremiah Smith. I'm
going to make you choose between Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams.
I think I already have a choice. Anyways, I'm with you. I still do the trade even if it is perceived from relatively speaking to other drafts as a little bit of a discount, a little bit of pennies on the dollar. I still think it's worth their while to do the trade down because I hate the idea of being forced into taking somebody 1-1 this year for the Patriots. Yep. I don't want to take anybody at 1-1. I don't. I just don't. Travis Hunter, awesome talent, scares the crap out of me. Like, what is he? Where does he play? What coaching staff are you giving him to?
Yeah.
It just...
I'm glad you've come around on that take.
That terrifies me. I still think he could play receiver in the league. I still lean towards him being a better corner, but I think he's going to want to play receiver.
Everything I've heard is the league is drafting him as a corner.
Yeah, but he wants to play receiver.
I know he does, but...
Yeah. He wants to play both ways.
Right.
I'm coming around. If I had, that gun to your head, you have to take somebody 1-1. I am coming around a little bit to Abdul Carter because I think the biggest reason...
Wasn't that your whole Trayvon Walker take?
It is a little bit, but I think Abdul Carter has more college production than Trayvon Walker did. The biggest reason why, though, is because I want a super athlete. If I'm going to have to draft somebody there, I want him to at least be a unicorn athletically, and I do think that Hunter and Abdul Carter both check that box. So at least there's that, but their projection is murky in terms of Hunter, especially. But even Carter, he's going to be like a 6'2", 245-pound edge rusher. In this system, he's not going to set the edge, right? Like he's not going to be that kind of guy. So how do they use him? How do they develop his pass rush toolbox? I think is really big too, because he's still a little bit raw after playing inside most of his career at Penn State and then playing on the line of scrimmage mostly this year. Like he's still developing as a pass rusher, but the tools are the tools. I mean, he's a shot out of the cannon freak, but I still would just do the trade down. To your point of how far down would you go?
Yeah.
I am trading down. My 2 targets in a trade down.
Yeah.
I would love to say that Carter would still be on the board for you. Like, let's say it goes, quarterback, Hunter, Mason Graham and Will Johnson are still sitting there.
I don't think Mason Graham's going before Abdul Carter.
Probably not. So maybe if you're at like 3 or 4, you could maybe still talk about Abdul Carter being on the board.
Look, if you're at 4, you're going to get one of Carter or Hunter.
Right.
I truly believe that.
So I like that. That's where I sort of like to be.
I think 3 or 4 is the sweet spot. I will remind people, too, the Browns do have all their picks back.
Yeah.
After the now, there may be more of a day 2 quarterback team because they restructured Rodgers' contract. We were talking. Was it you I was talking earlier about Drew Aller? Like, that may be a landing spot for Drew Aller. The other question in this, because I've been getting this a lot, and I asked you off the air where you stand, but just for you to give your take on the air.
Can I give one more on that real quick?
Yeah.
The 2 guys that I'm looking at right now for the Patriots, and Hunter's his own thing. Like, I think Hunter is, you need to be organizationally aligned to draft a guy like Travis Hunter. This is what he is. This is how we're going to play him. This is how we're going to manage it, whatever. And frankly, with the state of the Patriots, I'm not sure they're that organization.
That was my take a couple weeks ago.
So the 2 guys I'm looking at.
Oh, it's such a you take.
It is a you take.
Welcome to it.
What I'm looking at right now, Kelvin Banks, Abdul Carter, right? Like whichever doesn't go your way in free agency.
Right.
Right? Like if you don't get the pass rusher in free agency or you don't get the tackle, whichever way it goes in free agency, I think you have a plug-and-play starter on the line or an impact pass rusher.
I'm with you. I want a line of scrimmage player one side of the ball or the other.
Correct.
Trenches out. Remind me where you're at on Campbell.
If his arms are checked off, then I'm in. But
so would you put him in that group?
If he's, even if it's like 32 and 7/8, just get me as close to 33 as you possibly can. I mean, the clip that's going around of his answer at the press, like that guy's just going to be, he's going to be an NFL football player for a decade. I don't know if it's going to be inside or outside, but he's going to make an offensive line better. He's going to be a captain. Like he's going to be.
Sounds like Matthew McConaughey too.
He's okay.
Doesn't he?
A little bit. He's going to be an absolute stud in your locker room, on your football field, everywhere. I just don't know where on the football field he's going to be.
So
playing.
I'm with you, and like if they walk away with Carter Banks and then Campbell with the asterisk with the arms, right?
Yeah.
If they walk away with Carter Banks or tackle Will Campbell, that good. They did the job.
Yeah.
And then just if they get the first but they can do that without the first overall pick, which goes back to my take of the first overall pick's really about the 2026 offseason, not 2025.
Okay, what's your
So if we're
last
talking about spots to trade down, right?
We'll
Tennessee at 2 seems like a spot. Cleveland at 3 seems like a spot. Giants at 4 as it stands right now. Vegas at 8. I wouldn't go down to 10. Maybe New Orleans somehow slips a couple spots. That could be a quarterback team. Would you, and I'm not talking about Fred's trade, I'm talking about swap picks, the trade we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Would you trade the first overall pick in the division to the New York Jets?
I lean towards yes, because I don't think.
So you've changed your mind.
Did I change my mind?
Yeah, I texted you about this the other day.
I always like am inclined to say no, but I don't really think very highly of Shador. And I kind of feel like giving him to the Jets might actually be like kind of sabotaging the Jets in a way.
I would not do it. So maybe if the Jets were at like 3, I would.
Yeah.
On the off chance Shador is a guy, you put an elite quarterback on your schedule twice a year for 10 years, there's no coming back from that.
No,
there's no coming back.
I probably still say no, but I do find it funny that they could hand him a overdrafted quarterback.
Now, well, I made this joke yesterday because you know my take on Will Howard, right?
Yeah,
Some NFL team. If you find out the Jets want Will Howard, fine, have the pick. But if that being said, if I'm Elliott Wolf or whoever's in charge, right, I am leaking to everybody under the sun that I'm taking the Jets call. And I'm taking the Jets call.
Yeah.
And I'm using that to leverage these other teams. I'm not trading it to the Jets, but I'm not letting the Jets know that I'm not trading it to the Jets.
All right, let's open it up because I know these people have been waiting. We're getting inundated with emails. That's the right word, right? We got lots of emails.
Yes, we got calls.
We got lots of emails. So Bridgestone is the official tire of the New England Patriots and is proud to sponsor with Sullivan Tire, New England's headquarters for quality Bridgestone tires. Visit sullivantire.com to find a location near you. And do your New Year's resolutions include upgrading your mattress? Bob's Discount Furniture can help. Whether you're looking for a plush pillow top cloud or need a firmer memory foam feel, there's a budget-friendly Bob-O-Pedic mattress for you. Plus, Bob's mattresses come with the best-in-the-biz warranties and cost hundreds, even thousands less than the competition. So stop in and get your best rest yet thanks to Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. I will tell you, Marine. That Bob's read is the cleanest read we've ever had from Bob's. That's how you write out a read. Like that's how you know that somebody actually read it out loud and said, "Is this going to be a tongue pretzel or is this actually going to come out clean?" So good job, Bob's. All right, let's get to these phones because people have been waiting. Patty is in Agawam. What's up, Patty?
What is up this afternoon, gentlemen?
How we doing?
All right, so Evan, your favorite discussion, draft talk.
Oh yeah.
First off, Alex, I got to tell you, you can't compare that Packers team to this Patriots team. That Packers team went 15-1, and we are abysmal.
Yeah, but when else am I going to get to talk about Matt Flynn?
Good point. But that game made that dude a lot of money. So
yes, it did.
Props to him. So I just want to say one thing to you, Evan, and then give you the combos that I want. Never underestimate how stupid the Raiders are, Evan. I don't care that Tom Brady's in that organization. If Mark Davis wants Shador Sanders and we're sitting there at 1, I would give it to him. Because I think we can get a first-round pick, like you were saying, a future first-round pick, swap picks, and a second-round pick this year. And that'd be good enough for me, and I would take Banks if he's there. But I want to come away with a combination of one of these two players, either Banks and Jack Sawyer. I don't care if you got to trade up to the first round to get him, but the guy I really want now is Abdul Carter, because our defense sucks. And part of the reason why our defense sucks is we cannot generate a pass rush, and we need a friggin' dude, and that guy is a dude. Get him and trade up and try and get Connerly. So if we can get a combination of one of those two things, I'll walk away from this draft happy. That's all I got.
Thanks, Patty.
Good takes.
I feel like this is starting to become a little bit of groupthink, which is not an insult. Abdul Carter or Banks.
Yeah.
And then trading back up into the end of the first round to get whatever you don't get.
Right.
And I love the take. That's kind of where I am settled at this point. I sent you my little off-season plan. I think I'll
tell
be
you
out
this.
next week.
Jack Sawyer was awesome in that Rose Bowl. He was really freaking good. I thought he was going to be a second-round pick. After that game, maybe not.
Yeah, he's ranked pretty low on our consensus website. I
think that's going to – they haven't updated yet for yesterday's games.
Yeah,
he's gonna,
I threw that out. I was thinking of throwing that out there, too, because I like a couple of those guys. I don't feel like you could ever go wrong with drafting talent from Ohio State.
What's crazy? The two guys on Ohio State who are probably the best NFL prospects, neither one of them is draft eligible this year.
We'll get to it in a second.
Well, I want to know if you watch Caleb Downs too.
I don't think so.
So allow me for a second.
Okay.
2025 draft, we're done.
No.
Number 1 for the Patriots on the 2026 draft board right now, and hopefully they're not picking this high, but Caleb Downs.
What position is he like?
Safety.
There you go.
He was like one of Nick Saban's favorite recruits ever. And then when Saban retired, he transferred to Ohio State this year.
Yeah.
And he's like the guy. He does everything on that Ohio State defense. He was the only unanimous All-American playing in the Rose Bowl yesterday. But he's a true sophomore. If he was in this draft, he's easily a top 10, probably a top 5 pick.
So I'm always with the Buckeyes, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's been almost neglected by the Patriots for some probably weird Ohio State bias or something.
Nate Ebner.
Yeah, besides Nate Ebner, we need some more Buckeyes here.
Yeah.
That's where the talent is.
Well, maybe if you have a Buckeyes head coach.
So, yeah, that's true. Jack Sawyer, I'm in. But, yeah, I really like this idea, in my opinion, and I think they tried to pull it off last year, and they just couldn't do it, of trading. You're going to be at probably, 33, 34, 35, something like that at the top of the second round. I would love to make 2 first-round picks, especially in a year like this where it's a really thin draft at the top. You might as well get 2 guys that are, consensus, first-rounders in this class. So there's a couple guys that fit that bill. To me, Connerly's certainly one of them if you don't get the tackle early. And I have a couple others, but I want to save that for recency bias here at the end. But yeah, I'm with Patty about that trade up. I feel like if you trade down,
yeah,
and then you accumulate the assets, and then you use one of those assets to then trade back up.
And they
to
still have
make
that
2
extra
first-round
third
picks.
too,
right?
From the Judon trade.
So then you make 2 first-round picks. All right, Sean is in Florida. What's up, Sean? Sean.
Hey guys.
Hey, how you doing?
Alex, Evan.
Hey.
Great. Happy New Year. I hope you both had a happy Hanukkah.
Thank you. To you too.
And you're welcome. Well, I hear a lot of talk about Joe Milton playing on Sunday, and it makes sense. one argument I haven't heard yet is something I wanted to bring up, that we don't know if Brissett's going to be back next year. So, like, Alex, you mentioned the Bills don't know much about Joe Milton. Do the Patriots? I want to see if this guy can run our offense. Can he be a backup next year? And, Alex, also, I like your trying to get to the 2027 draft. I think that's going to be a good one because the Patriots, let's face it, they're not a good team. They're not going to be in playoffs in 2025 or 2026. So looking at not just Jeremiah Smith, but also someone who we'll probably see today in Emmett Mosley. There's going to be some good receivers, and it'd be nice to have possibly ammunition to get that pick again for the top one. So I'll let you go and comment on that. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Sean. So we've got a bunch of emails about this because everybody is watching, I'm sure, the college football playoff games yesterday. David in Madrid, who's a regular listener, asked about this as well. Can
I just say to his first point real quick?
Yep.
That is another value of Joe Milton playing. You find out if you need a backup quarterback this offseason or not.
No,
like with Cole Strange, check another box before the offseason starts.
Agreed. I'm for Joe Milton getting some time in this game, 100%. David here says, something
we do have
similar.
a little bit of draft news.
Okay.
Jalen Milroe has officially declared.
Oh, geez.
So there's another quarterback on the board. I might have gone back if I were him after that game this week, but Evan wanted Alabama in the playoffs, so maybe he feels differently, but
I still feel the same way. I still would have taken Alabama.
They got housed by Michigan.
I don't know.
Michigan,
they didn't
Oklahoma, Vanderbilt.
They didn't care about the game.
Cared enough to play everybody. Michigan didn't. Michigan played their backups.
They weren't trying.
Jalen Miller should have been trying if he knew he was going to the draft.
Just to poke him. So David in Madrid called in about the 2027 draft as well, which is just I love that our listeners play ball with us on these things, and we actually talk about 3 drafts from now, which is just great. I love that.
As much as anybody, how giddy Patriots fans get about elite wide receiver prospects. There was a need for a quarterback last year.
Yes.
There were 3 franchise quarterbacks on the board, and you still had a large segment of the fan base that they just want that receiver already because it's been 20 or however long since Randy Moss was here, right? And by the way,
20 years.
Marvin Harrison, billed as generational. I'm not saying that was incorrect. Jeremiah Smith's already better than him as a true freshman.
So for those that don't know, because some people aren't paying attention to the 2027 draft.
I don't think those people are watching this show.
Jeremiah Smith on Ohio State, who's a true freshman, 19-year-old from Miami area, somehow got out of the state of Florida and went up to Ohio State.
It's Ohio State. He's
to work with Brian Hartline. And Jeremiah Smith, I looked this up actually last night, trying to rack my brain. Jeremiah Smith, I don't think it's hyperbole to say, is the best true freshman receiver that's ever lived.
He is I'm trying to find who the first 2 were. Jeremiah Smith is the 3rd highest ranked recruit in the history of 24/7. And I can't remember who the other 2 players are. I know one of them is like on track to be an NFL Hall of Famer, and the other barely made it in the NFL. But he is rare. Remember last year we were saying Harrison was rare, and I was knocking it down. Everybody was saying these other guys. I don't like to use generational. Jeremiah Smith is why, because I need a proper way to talk about Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith is different. If Jeremiah Smith was in the NFL today, Evan, at 18 years old, he'd be a top 10 receiver?
He would already be the best receiver on the Patriots by a country mile.
In the NFL today, how many receivers are there better than 18-year-old version Jeremiah Smith?
I think he's probably a top 15 receiver easily.
So the way he was described to me by somebody before the season started, because I'm looking at these things, I'm like, wow, who's this recruit Ohio State got? The way he was described to me was, you know how everybody drooled about Marvin Harrison Jr.? Yeah. Imagine if Harrison Jr. was a slightly better route runner and ran a 4.40.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of Julio comparisons because they have similar measurables, like 6'3", 215. Also, let's just throw it out there. It's insane that Jeremiah Smith at 19 years old is 6'3", 215. Like, that's absolutely stupid and absurd. I don't know what he was fed as a child, but it certainly wasn't the same food I was eating. I would also just say that I
correct me. He is the highest rated recruit since 2000 for 24/7.
So
he wasn't the second highest overall. There's a couple guys ahead of him. But
I looked at some of the other really great true freshman seasons of yesteryear. The thing is that, as you would could attest to, true freshmen didn't play like they do now, right?
Yeah.
Like, they weren't given the opportunities. So, like, even like true freshman Julio Jones didn't play a ton right out of the gate at Alabama, right? So those stats, like Chris Carter had like the freshman record for like the longest time. It was like 500 yards,
Yeah.
right? So it's changed. The landscape has changed about playing these guys as early as they are. Saban historically never played freshmen. Even Julio Jones had to earn playing time in Saban's system. So it's not apples to apples is my point comparing him to guys like that. Jamar Chase's breakout season was his sophomore season.
Yeah.
So he wasn't a breakout freshman. It's pretty hard to find a breakout true freshman on the level of Jeremiah Smith. You were teasing me earlier. He's perfect. Like he's literally perfect. He's 6'3",
I'll find something.
215 pounds, 4.4 or below. I think he might be in the 4.3s.
So he ran a 4.4 in high school last year.
Fantastic
so you
ball
think that
skills,
he's going to
body
get faster.
control. He wins at the catch point. His release, he can stack. He can release off the line of scrimmage against press man coverage. He's fantastic. He's unbelievable. Do I think you can plan ahead to the 2027 draft to put yourself in a position to draft
him? If you start trading down first-round picks.
Maybe, I guess, in theory. I don't know. That's some balls to like look that far ahead with your job security where it's at right now for the people in this building. But like in general, yeah. I mean, look, he's the person that he reminds me of. He's a little bigger than Jamar, but he moves a lot to me like Jamar Chase, but is definitely more in like the longer build. I like Jamar Chase. I want to say is like 6'1", 6'2". So Jeremiah Smith's a little bit bigger, but when I watch him on film, he moves and wins a lot like Jamar.
I'm on the Julio train. I really am.
Yeah, you can see that.
I'm on the Julio train.
Yeah, because
the other thing is, like,
as he is, I just have a tough time. And I mean, as great as
Right.
Jamar is, I have such a tough time comparing guys to Julio.
On
Jones.
top of everything you just said, the one thing that stands out to me watching him, his hands are so big and so strong. It allows him to make some absurd catches. You want the list of guys who are higher rated recruits than Jeremiah Smith ever or since 2000?
Sure, hit me.
So the highest rated high school recruit of all time is Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah,
He's freak.
Yeah.
Cyrus Kouanjo, he was a bust at Alabama. He got hurt a bunch. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Brian Brzee, Bryce Young, Walker Little. That's it.
Those are some interesting ones.
Yeah. He's tied with Fournette.
Yeah, he's incredible. I said the thing about the state of Florida. How that guy? He grew up in Miami.
Yeah.
Like, how does he get out of the state of Florida?
Well, one, NIL. Two, Ohio State has this poll where if you're an elite receiver and you want to maximize what you can do, you go play for Brian Hartline. He's the only recruit. So
he's
the only recruit 24/7, only wide receiver recruit that's ever gotten 6 stars. So Dorial Green Beckham was just below.
This is not a great.
Julio Jones was just below.
Not a great bar. But he's fantastic. I mean, he's fantastic. I have one more thought on it, but I want to save it.
No, what is it?
No. I want to save it.
Are we going to get in this show or for 2027?
No. In this show,
Okay.
It's just relevant to something else. All right, Jesse, is he in the car or is he in Carolina? He's in the car. Jesse's in the car. What's up, Jesse?
Was in the car. I've been listening for a while, so now I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you.
One thing that I wanted to point out, Evan, that I don't know that you're fully taking into account, so it's going to kind of support Alex's point of view, but a lot of these NFL execs are looking at the QB class in 2-year increments, 2-cycle increments. So what is ahead if you're one of these QB-needy teams? Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller, and John Mateer, right? I think some of those teams are going to get jumpy looking ahead. Like, you can't go to 2027, as we're talking about it, for Arch Manning. So I think there will be a desire to get their most highly ranked, whether it's Ward or Shedeur Sanders, to move up for those picks. Because looking ahead, it's not like it's the class of 2024 where you see guys who are talented and you could possibly wait. If you need your quarterback now, you better get him now because he might not be there next year. Question for you guys. Talking about trading back into the first round if you trade down. Thoughts on Tyler Warren as a rock-solid difference maker as a pass catcher?
Good call,
Question,
Jesse.
real quick on the quarterback class. So Arch Manning is eligible next year.
Yeah.
Assuming Ewers goes to school, he'll start. But he's right. After Arch Manning, the projection right now, and Drew Aller's a wild card here. I think Drew Aller might come out this year. After Arch Manning, next year's quarterback class. So I said before, like everybody's treating this year like it's 2022 when it's not.
Yeah.
If Arch Manning doesn't come out as a junior, next year's class looks like 2022. If you want a quarterback, get him now, because you're probably not going to have a job. That 2027 class rules. That's like, you know how much I love DJ LeGuay and those guys.
Yeah.
Are you still going to have a job if you wait that long?
Okay, so here's my take on the quarterbacks, and this is just like a big picture take that I have.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's going to be more teams that are going to look at the Seattle Seahawks with Geno Smith,
Yeah.
the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield, the Minnesota Vikings with Sam Darnold, and they're going to say, even like to a lesser extent, but I still think it applies, the Detroit Lions with Jared Goff. And they're going to look at it and say, we could do something like that instead of overdrafting or trading a haul and overdrafting, yada, yada, yada. I just wonder if those success stories change at all how the landscape is viewed for, like, quote unquote busts in the first round. And how does that impact this whole market? Like, let's say, you know, I don't have a great example, I guess, off the top of my head of like who would move in that type of scenario. But I would look at Darnold in particular as like a free agent. They obviously drafted JJ in the first round. Like, it's probably going to be JJ McCarthy's team at some point, unless Darnold like wins an MVP next year or something like that. So at what team, are the Giants, for example, with Brian Dable, who they know it does well with quarterbacks? Like, would they just pay Darnold like a bridgy franchise quarterback deal instead, and then buy themselves some time to draft the quarterback?
Darnold's an interesting one. I think one of these quarterback teams will end up with Darnold or McCarthy. By the way, the Vikings should trade J.J. McCarthy. That's how I feel.
I feel the same
maybe
way.
a surprise. But for every Geno Smith, how many times are you going to get Kirk Cousins or Aaron Rodgers,
but the difference between
or
Kirk
Derek
Cousins,
Carr,
I hear you, but
or
the difference
Russell
between,
Wilson?
The difference between all those examples, though, is their age, obviously, right? Like, I'm talking about
Derek Carr.
Derek Carr is still older than like Baker was. Like, Geno's a good comp for those guys, I suppose, but like the Darnold Baker comp is second contract.
So Darnold is legit. Darnold, the Jets quit on too early, I think. Although that situation in Minnesota is fantastic. So that's one team.
Yeah.
Who's next?
I'm looking at it because I'm trying to figure out, like, because to make my take whole, I have to find some examples.
This is my point. I don't think that maybe works for one team. There's 5 or 6 quarterback needy teams, and that's just at the top of the draft. You also have to consider the Seahawks may want a quarterback, the Steelers may want a quarterback, teams like that. So now, if you want to go, if you want to, like, the group of guys you're talking about here, Evan, are the 2021 class. You're talking about Mac Jones. You're talking about Justin Fields. You're talking about Zach Wilson.
Right.
That's who you're talking about. Are you really going to risk would you rather go that route, especially some of these teams that don't have the talent that the Detroit Lions do? And the other thing is, and we know this all too well because of what just happened here in New England. You sign Sam Darnold, that changes the football team. You draft Shadur Sanders in the top 5. You draft Cam Ward in the top 5. That changes the organization. That changes the franchise. You're not going to get the buzz. Maybe Darnold again, but who's that next guy? Who really is the next veteran name? You're not going to get the organizational pop signing a veteran that you do. And if you have a high pick, if you're scheduled to pick in the top 5, 6, 7, as we talked about last year, the owner is involved to an extent at that point, and you now have to sell the owner on, well, look at what all these teams last year with their rookie quarterbacks did.
Okay, but you could also say look at the Vikings. Like, the Vikings are going to potentially be the number 1 seed in the playoffs in the NFC.
But that was a slow burn. That was not.
I just look at it, and I think
you didn't have people lining up to buy Sam Darnold jerseys.
I know, but we have a 50-50 hit rate with these quarterbacks in the first round. For every Jaden Daniels and Drake May and Bo Nix, there is we know all of them, right? There's a bust, right? There's a Zach Wilson. There's a Mac Jones. Like, this could go either way in the draft.
Your plan is to sign Zach Wilson or Mac Jones instead.
No, I hear you.
I guess Darnold's different. That's one team. You've accounted for one team.
I get it. There's a difference there's not like a great pivot, I would say. Darnold to the Giants, though, to me just feels really doable. Like
Okay.
I feel like if Daboll stays, and so you feel good about the development and the play calling and all that, and the offensive side of the ball, you have Malik Neighbors for him. Like you obviously use the number 2 overall pick or whatever pick they end up with, 4 or 2, whatever. You draft, help. To help him out even more. Maybe that's a Ted McMillan team. Maybe that's a tackle team, whatever.
So now the Patriots called Tennessee Titans or the Cleveland Browns or the Las Vegas Raiders.
Sure. You're right.
Who did not get Sam Darnold.
Right, but Sam Darnold's definitely
and now
gonna
those
take a
teams
team
are
out.
more desperate because there's one guy off the market.
Okay, let me give you another name.
Okay.
Because just to have fun. Brock Purdy.
Well, does his elbow work?
Assume it works.
All right. Would you really rather have Brock Purdy than Shedeur Sanders?
Yes.
You of all people would.
Yes,
Brock...
because at least I have proof that Brock Purdy can play in the league.
I saw enough of what Brock Purdy looks like this year without the Monstars around him on offense.
I thought he played better this year than he did last year.
I don't think so.
I think he did. I think last year he was just surrounded by freaking Monstars, like you just said. This year he actually had to elevate a little bit, and I actually think he played better.
How many games they win?
Yeah, I'm not saying they won a ton, but I actually thought that his film and his play was better.
So, and again, now you have to sell the owner on. You going to get people line up around the block for Brock Purdy jerseys in Las Vegas?
The Raiders maybe
not. You're going to be able to sell those suites to people to come watch Brock Purdy?
Are the Titans better off with that? Like, I'm just not high on the quarterback class.
You're building a brand new stadium in Tennessee.
Oh, my God.
You're building that to put Brock Purdy in the middle of it?
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
as opposed to Shedeur
a guy
Sanders?
that went to a Super Bowl and has been pretty good.
So now we're giving Brock Purdy credit for that Super Bowl because for a long time on the show we have not given Brock Purdy.
The reason why I brought up
all right,
Brock Purdy,
so then you know who's a free agent? Jimmy Garoppolo.
No, come on. The reason why I brought up Brock Purdy is because one, I just wanted to bring up Brock Purdy because I knew it would be funny. But two, you and I both know that there's a chance that Kyle Shanahan looks at Brock Purdy and says, "You want me to pay you how much?"
I think, Brock Purdy might be gone. That's very real.
Right.
He's not going to move on from Brock Purdy this year. He still has one more year on his contract.
Yeah, but he needs that extension. And the Niners, I am not sold are going to give him that.
I think there's a real chance he ends up being a lame duck starting quarterback for them.
It could happen. And he could get like a Daniel Jones type extension where it's like really a 2-year deal, but it's disguised as like a 4-year, mega quarterback contract.
If that's what NFL teams want to do, that's what they want to do. But
I'm just telling you that I feel like the reclamation project thing is in right now.
It is, but there are not 5 serious
not
reclamation quarterbacks.
That's
Tennessee, Cleveland, the Giants. The Jets aren't going to do a reclamation. They just did that. The Raiders and the Saints. If you can give me 5 quarterbacks more that are a better option than Shedeur Sanders, I'll agree with your take.
But Shedeur Sanders can only go to one team to do the Sam Darnold thing.
The Patriots only need one team. They're not trading the pick to 3 different teams.
No, but they need at least 2 teams to be interested in the pick.
They only need 1.
They don't. They need at least 2.
That's
not how markets work.
But
you can't just have one team.
But you're not going to. If somebody views Shedeur Sanders as a franchise quarterback, they are going to trade up. Right?
You think that a team that let's say it's a team that's at 4 or 3 or 4 or 5, and they know that, they want Shedeur Sanders, but nobody else freaking does. You think that they're going to just trade a package to the Patriots just because?
Well, because maybe some of these teams don't want Shedeur Sanders at 1, but they take him at 3 or 4.
Okay, but what if that team's already ahead?
The Cleveland Browns are a fascinating wild card.
Somebody needs to say, okay, this team is picking 2. Tennessee is picking 2nd overall and is a quarterback team and will take Shedeur Sanders if the Patriots don't trade out of that pick, and that's how you create the market, right?
Right.
You need that to exist. Like if the Titans sign Sam Darnold, then it doesn't work.
So you only need 1 team plus the Titans. I don't think the Titans are going the veteran route. They have not invested in that position seriously in a long time.
Except Levi's.
It didn't work. It clearly didn't work, and people weren't happy with that pick at the time that they half measured it.
Okay, let's
no, you got a chance to talk about your guy Tyler Warren there.
Oh, yeah. I do like Tyler Warren a lot. Here's my reservation with Tyler Warren.
Yeah.
And I hate to hold this against him, but it's kind of like the tight end thing in general to me. Building an offense around a tight end is just different than building it around receivers. And you need that tight end to be Gronk, Kelsey level good.
Well, what if
to
they
make
get
it work?
T. Higgins, DK Metcalf kind of guy?
Sure. If there's multiple pieces to this.
So
then
I
fine.
know you were big. You were talking earlier about get DK Metcalf, however trade for DK Metcalf, and then move up into the first or hope in the second that like Emeka Egbuka falls to you, right?
Yeah.
Could you do that plan with Tyler Warren?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can trade back up for Tyler Warren.
I'll tell you my issue with Tyler Warren.
Okay.
I think he's going to go too early to realistically trade back up in the first round.
Yeah,
especially
he's really good.
Well, he's listed at 6'6", 260, which is part of what makes him so impressive.
Yeah.
He might get to the combine and be like 245, so we'll see there. But I don't think he's going to be a top 15 pick. I think he's going to be top 20.
He moves like a smaller guy, but he has the physicality of the bigger guy still. This isn't Travis Kelce who plays like a pansy.
Right, so that's the thing. One, like he can block.
I was looking for
I was going to say,
word.
He'll block, he'll play, he'll do the dirty work.
Yeah.
The Travis Kelce, this is not, he's a wide receiver, but he's big, so they call him a tight end.
Right.
This is a true 3-down, well-rounded tight end.
Yeah.
The other thing he has going for him, copycat league. How many teams around the league you think are licking their chops, looking at it and going, I'd love to get myself a Brock Bowers. This is the guy.
So it's not fair to Brock Bowers because he's been awesome.
Yeah.
But it sort of speaks to my point. He just hasn't impacted that offense at all. Like he's put up great numbers, but the offense isn't any better. And that's
right.
Mostly because they don't have a quarterback. Like it's not necessarily solely a Brock Bowers problem. Because like you could say,
although to be fair, like couldn't I say the same thing about Malik Neighbors?
I was just about to say that. You could probably say something similar to Malik Neighbors as well. But I just think from a coaching standpoint, if you're trying a game plan team that has a really, really good tight end, unless he's Gronk, Kelce, that kind of level, I do think that it's just harder to build it out from there, right? Most of the time, like tight ends are 800-ish yards a year, and the thing that I worry about with Tyler Warren is like, I don't think he's going to be as bad, but like Kyle Pitts, right, was supposed to like change the revolution of tight ends and everything. TJ Hawkinson, who I thought was a great prospect coming out. Like this happens with tight ends. OJ Howard, like these guys get overdrafted a little bit, but I do like the player. I'm not trying to kill the player. I always am wary of, okay, we're going to build around a tight end. Like you better hope that that's a generational tight end. You better hope that guy's really good. All right, Ty in North Carolina is on the line. What's up, Ty?
Hey, what's up, guys? I wanted to change tracks real quick from draft talk and talk a little bit about Coach Mayo. One thing I haven't really heard too much talked about is just the fact that he knew that he was going to be the Patriots head coach. I know he took over a year before he was expected to, but he knew that he was going to be taking over for Bill. And for this year to look the way that it has just been really disappointing. And I think that there's just way too momentum involved with hiring a coach variable in the offseason and using that to bring in free agents and then also work the draft, trade back, get as many assets and build forward. Just want to get your guys' thoughts on that.
Yeah, Ty, thanks for the call. I would say the biggest criticism beyond the micro level stuff that we can nitpick, the scheme and all that messaging, and the biggest criticism that I have with Gerard Mayo so far has been that I don't think that he was at all prepared to build a staff when he got hired. And when you look at a lot of these other coaches around the league, when they get the job, they know who their OC is going to be.
Right.
They know who their DC is going to be. And it almost is coming as a package. Like part of the interview is who are going to be your high-level assistants.
You lay out, this is who I'm bringing with me.
Right. And so a couple examples. Raheem Morris in Atlanta. Raheem Morris knew that Zach Robinson was coming with him from LA, right? Like he knew Zach Robinson is my OC pick. He's my guy. Jim Harbaugh came with two coordinators that have all sorts of ties to the Harbaughs, right? Greg Roman and Jesse Minter, who was at Michigan with him. He had his coordinators locked and ready to go. Part of that is because Gerard's only worked for one organization and there wasn't an obvious OC unless they kept O'Brien. Like there wasn't an obvious OC for him to go after within the walls. But that would be my one criticism. And I think the one really strong pitch, other than the obvious of the experience that he has, the strong pitch for Vrabel in going that direction is that my guess is that Vrabel has spent the last year poking around to see who would come with him to his next stop. So he's going to come probably turnkey. Like he's going to have head coach is going to be him. I would actually even say that there's a chance that he already has a personnel guy that he would favor. Offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator, probably some high-level assistants that are already on his radar as well. That's very appealing. It's very appealing to have that turnkey situation, and this never felt like this. They interviewed like 15 offensive coordinator candidates and settled on Alex Van Pelt. DeMarcus Covington was an internal promotion, obviously, but that one even felt like he was maybe a year or two early to get that kind of job. It just didn't feel like the staff was in great shape from the jump. So, yeah, it is appealing. You can't deny that. It's appealing to just go out there and get a guy like Vrabel who you know is going to be a turnkey staff. And that's the decision they're going to have to make.
Well, that's why I've had this take, like if they are going to move on from Gerard Mayo, right? I've seen people say you need an offensive coach for Drake May. More than offensive versus defensive, I just want a guy with previous experience.
Yeah.
I don't think replacing a rookie head coach with another rookie head coach solves the problems you're trying to solve. It's like I'm kind of out on Ben Johnson because we know he can design an offense and we know he can be great in that regard and all that, but can he command a locker room? Can he do the game planning element of it? Can he handle the pressers and things like that? Like,
yeah.
I think experience, if they are moving on from Mayo, what should the next guy have? Issue number one for me is experience. You figure it out on either side of the ball after that with coordinators. And the fact Vrabel might come with Josh McDaniels, who's not a flight risk, is certainly a unique, intriguing trait. We talked about this last year. But, yeah, experience should be the number one concern if they are going to add a new head coach above all else.
Experience, and I've come, I think this is, your side of the street. I've come around to the whole idea of, like, culture building. Right. And building a football program. Like, I feel, and maybe it's just because Jim Harbaugh was just here, but it feels as though, that has become even more important in a lot of cases than he calls offensive plays.
Well, look,
and
to your point about that is, well, you want an offensive coach because him and the quarterback can grow together and all that, but if you have a head coach, and this is where Dan Campbell comes in, this is where Dan Campbell's really going to get put
Dan Campbell's a great example.
Well, this is where he'll get put to the test this offseason. A big part of the reason Dan Campbell is good is Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn are amazing at what they do. Doesn't mean they'll be good head coaches, but what they do, they're amazing at. They're both probably going to leave this offseason. Does Dan Campbell have a pipeline in place? Forget developing players. Can you develop coaches? That's part of the reason it worked here for so long. There was always a next guy up. And realistically, if your offensive coordinator moves on, right, and you replace him with the quarterback's coach, or you replace him with the tight ends coach, or you replace him with the passing game coordinator, the guys in your pipeline are not going to run a wildly different offense.
Right.
So as long as you can keep a pipeline and continue hiring from within, the concept of your offensive coordinator moving on every 2 or 3 years really isn't as scary as it otherwise would be. So,
especially if your quarterback gets to the point where he's
right in 4 or 5 years in, it becomes irrelevant.
Right.
So,
like, Josh Allen, like they kind of screwed up with Dorsey, but he's so good that he just kind of persevered through it, and they got it right with Joe Brady. So it ended up not mattering in the long term.
So for me, it's like if your coach can develop coaches,
it
doesn't really matter what side of the ball he's on, and I trust Vrabel to be able to do that.
There's a couple guys in the Lions staff. Who was the tight ends coach that interviewed around last year for OC jobs?
He interviewed here, right?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if those guys can coach like.
And
Ben
it's that
Johnson,
thing. You have an agreement. It's like I developed you, I worked with you, so you just have to leave me 1 or 2 guys when you take your new job.
Yeah.
So that Steve Hyden.
No.
Yeah, that's their tight ends. It was Steve Hyden.
Oh no, I think it was somebody else. I'm thinking of.
You were thinking of
Embry.
Tanner Engstrad.
Yeah, that's
he is their pass game
coordinator now. Yeah,
he was the tight ends coach a couple years ago.
Yeah,
but like
he's the guy that seems to be next.
You just keep that pipeline stocked, and it's going to matter a lot less than you thought.
Yep. All right. Mark is in Connecticut. What's up, Mark?
Hey guys, just had 2 quick things for you. First of all, Happy New Year, guys.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
And first question's for Alex. So, Alex, I'm not understanding what gain. Now, NBC Sports Boston talked about it a lot. What gain do you have by putting Drake May out there, other than getting him a little more experience? I mean, he's already hurt. You're really you're throwing him out there to accomplish what? I mean, the Buffalo Bills are going to have their backups out there, most of them. I mean, Josh Allen's going to come out for a series maybe, and then that's
right. So why can't he do the same thing as Josh Allen? That's my whole point. Come out, hand it off a couple times. He's your franchise quarterback. Franchise quarterbacks start games.
What if he gets hurt?
and then he can't start the next season. That's more of the thing.
What if Josh Allen gets hurt? Do you disagree with the Bills starting Josh Allen?
Well, Josh Allen's going to turn around and hand the ball
That's
off.
what I'm saying. Why can't Drake May do that?
Why? Well, then, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess you can.
Right. That's all.
Well,
I'm not
that's
saying
really
start
pointless.
Drake May and have him drop back 50 times. I'm saying this is what franchise quarterbacks do. He wants to be viewed on that same level. You as an organization want him viewed on that same level. Let him go out there, hand off a couple times, and take him out, because that's what star quarterbacks do in this league, and you're trying to turn him into a star.
Absolutely. And then the second thing was for Evan. I'm just very disappointed in Gerard Mayo, his communication all year with the media. I mean, just his in-game decisions have it hasn't gotten better at all throughout the year, and you should see progress, and you haven't. Now, I think Mike Vrabel is the answer, and everybody else has been calling up, talking about it as well. When he can bring a staff in, and we can get this rebuild rocking and rolling, I think, a lot faster than sticking with Gerard Mayo. But I don't think that the Crafts have the balls to do it, because I think it'll look bad on them after 1 year firing Gerard Mayo.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for the call. I go back and forth on that about whether it would look bad. I think in a lot of ways it could look bad, and you could certainly spin it that way if you wanted to. I also think a lot of people will spin it sunk cost fallacy, right? Like you made a mistake.
They admitted they made a mistake. They moved on.
Right. Like
and then, it becomes about who they hire next, but
I feel like it's almost, to me, and this isn't like just to be company man, but like I honestly think that would be commendable. Like I think that would be good. Like if they really truly felt, and they have all the information and we don't. So if they truly really felt that this was a mistake and he wasn't ready for it and it was a mistake, then admitting the mistake and not wasting another year of Drake May's clock, of the whole organization's time, all of our times, and not wasting another year. I honestly think that would be spun as a positive in a lot of ways. Okay, you made a mistake. Now, the difference is, and I know a lot of people have said the thing about Vrabel. I'm on board with Vrabel. I think we all are to an extent, if that's the way that this goes. But the other side of this is, and part of this will be league mandated with the Rooney Rule, but you absolutely have to have a legitimate hiring process.
Yeah, you got to go through the process.
You can't, this time around, you can't just hand the job to Vrabel, as good as he is, and as much as I think he would be the right hire. Now, is it ceremonial? Is it just going through the motions? Maybe. But you look at the team like the Chargers. The Chargers interviewed like 10 or 15 guys for their head coaching job. You have to go through a legitimate interview process. And if you end up on Mike Vrabel at the end of that process, then great. But you can't just do another situation where this is like a handshake deal under the table and we're just handing you the job. It's going to have to be a legitimate interview process. All right. Deshaun is in West Virginia. What's up, Deshaun?
Excuse me, it's actually Virginia.
Oh, okay. Regular Virginia.
Sorry, yes, I have two things. First is like with the draft. Where that caller that called about quarterbacks position not being available? He basically solidified my point. And I believe I mentioned before on Patriots Unfiltered about other guys' jobs being on the hot seat. As much as you guys talk about the jobs, people's jobs here in New England being on the hot seat, you don't think that's the same thing? The same want to be the same problem in those other places or whatever? That's why I believe that there will be entities go ahead and try to come up with a number one pick, to try to get their quarterback, knowing the fact that the foreseeable future may not hold, to be true as much as they want it to be. Now, when it comes to Mike Vrabel's situation, I believe if he get him, he'll bring stability to the situation. He can coach. And also people blame him for the destruction of Tennessee or whatever. People seem to forget that it was on the behalf of that GM. I believe if he comes here, he has more power. And he'll be able to get the guys that he want to get or the guys he want to keep. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Deshaun. Thanks for the call. Yeah, look, I get it. I get why everybody wants changes. I do.
Yeah, I would not bring John Robinson with Mike Vrabel.
No.
That is an important distinction.
I sent you a text about this, but Ryan Cowden in the New York Giants organization now, who was the number 2 to John Robinson for a long time in Tennessee. It sounds like there is a connection there between Vrabel.
Okay.
Now, the last thing I want to say about this, and, it's a touchy subject. I'm not going to lie to you. But the last thing I want to say to you about this, is there a world, because I'm starting to think there might be, is there a world where it's just Gerard. And maybe Covington also. But Vrabel comes with Elliott Wolf and keeps Alex Van Pelt, and they go that direction because I look at it, and Vrabel just came from Cleveland.
Yeah.
Just spent the year with Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland. And some of the reporting out of Cleveland at the time was that firing Van Pelt was a little bit of a head scratcher for everybody there.
Yeah.
He just came from Cleveland. His two coordinators in Tennessee were LaFleur and Arthur Smith, who are both West Coast offense, Shanahan disciple type coaches. And I wonder, I know Josh is popular. Tommy Reese is another name that's been floated around that I know you hate. But I just wonder, if he's going to run a West Coast offense anyways,
right,
and it's going to be that sort of flavor anyways.
Keep the continuity. Well,
yeah.
And then on top of that, you think Stefanski's job is safe?
He's a really good coach. I don't know.
Does Stefanski come in as essentially what? Why am I blanking on his name?
Ben McAdoo.
Yeah. Does Stefanski come in as, along with Ben McAdoo, to replace Ben McAdoo as kind of that offensive consultant?
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. I just wonder. I'm beginning to think that situation is a little bit possible.
Look, the McDaniels thing is always there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not, and it has its advantages. I honestly don't know that between McDaniels and between Van Pelt, I don't know that one's definitively better than the other. They're very different. They both have pros and cons, but there is certainly a through line with Elliott Wolf, Mike Vrabel, to Alex Van Pelt. And then if I can add one more to you there, Wes Welker.
So Wes Welker is a name that I've thought of maybe Vrabel being able to bring in to coach receivers.
Yeah.
There's also the current offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers is on the coaching track to be promoted somewhere. And I don't know if Vrabel
if you're keeping Van Pelt.
Right, but I'm talking about if they're not.
Oh, just another name to know.
I don't know if Vrabel is necessarily part of that. But if the Patriots decide even to keep Gerard and move on from
Talking about Adam Stenavich?
Yes. Adam Stenavich basically runs Green Bay's run game.
He was the run game coordinator before he was the
So he is Alex Van Pelt in Cleveland. He is not calling plays for the Green Bay Packers, but he is a little bit more sexy.
If you're going to do that, though, you got to get somebody with experience in that role.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but at least according to LaFleur, and I think that part of it is LaFleur is trying to gas up his guy to get him interviews and stuff like that. But LaFleur has said that this guy deserves to be at least a play caller somewhere, and he also has said that he basically calls the run game. So when they know they're gonna run the ball, he's the one that's calling the play. So I think he has done some a little bit of play calling, and he apparently is like the next thing, the next Mike McDaniel, the next Kyle Shanahan, the next Matt LaFleur. He's kind of the next guy. So whether it's Elliott Wolf's connection to Green Bay, bringing him here, whether it's, Mike Vrabel and Elliott Wolf bringing him, whatever. I don't know. But it's just a name to throw out there. That's in this system, in this tree, in this world. Last thing that I want to do before we wrap here, I do have some
We got to get to these emails.
I've been like a lot of what we're talking about.
I want that other Jeremiah Smith take.
Oh, yeah. We're going to do it right now.
Okay.
So I don't actually remember what I was going to say. But anyways.
You said you had another take on Jeremiah Smith.
Okay. Maybe I'll remember. So I have some recency bias guys for you.
Okay.
Not necessarily like pounding the table for either guy.
Yeah.
Just two guys I've watched recently.
Okay.
One of them you're going to hate. One of them I'm not sure about.
Yeah.
They both go to Ohio State.
Okay.
So the guy that I am swooning over a little bit now is Emeka Egbuka.
Is that the one I'm going to hate? Oh, no, I know which one I'm going to hate. Okay.
Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, who to me plays a lot like Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like they play the same role in Ohio State's offense, that Z slot role, and he just is more of like a glider, smooth mover, bursty off the line of scrimmage, but not going to blow you away with speed over the top. He's going to be an inside receiver in the NFL. I just like JSN has developed in year 2 for the Seahawks. I see Egbuka as your chain mover, right? Like that guy's going to catch 100 passes in the NFL.
Basically what Jalen Polk was supposed to be.
Yeah, and I really thought his film was really, really good. Just really smooth. Doesn't fight it. Catches the ball. Really smooth. Really going to be great in the gauntlet drill. Like one of those types of guys that's got great body control, great hands catcher, transitions really quickly into yards after the catch, has quickness at the top of the route to get open and create separation. He's just not a blazer. He's just not a third level deep threat type of receiver. Now, he can stretch the field from the inside, though. You put him, as the slot guy, number 2, number 3 in trips. Like, he can run the seam. He can run a deep over. He caught a touchdown pass yesterday, running, across the field on a deep over. Those elements are there. He's just not going to win on the outside on the perimeter. But if you're building out like kind of an offense and you're building out, a receiver room, if you get the outside guy in free agency or in the veteran market, if it's T. Higgins, if it's DK Metcalf, it's whoever. If you get that guy on the outside, that's what the Seahawks have going on right now, right? They have DK on the outside. They have JSN in the middle of the field. JSN's putting up great numbers. I'm starting to really love the idea of trading up into the back end of the first round for Egbuka, who I think is going to go somewhere in the 20s.
Yeah, I think he's going to move that high up. No, I like he can't be their only wide receiver addition.
Correct.
But if you get a DK Metcalf or T. Higgins, he would be a really nice complementary piece.
Yeah, I feel really strongly about the fact that I don't think anybody in the Patriots receiver room is good enough that I care about positional overlap.
Yeah.
So yes, technically he plays the same role as Jalen Polk. Jalen Polk didn't prove enough to me that I care.
No, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
I'm with you 100% on that.
The next one you're really going to hate.
Yeah.
I did watch Josh Simmons.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of caveats with Josh Simmons, and this is a take that probably we're going to unpack a lot more moving forward, but just my quick 30-second take on him. His film in the first 5 games of the season for Ohio State. No, I'll get to it.
Okay.
That he played against Ohio State was absolutely otherworldly. Like left tackle number 1 in the draft. Like he would be the top tackle in the draft, bar none, if he played like that the entire way.
Better than Campbell.
Yeah. If he was playing like that like yesterday in the bowl game, we wouldn't be even having a discussion. He would be number 1. Crisp, explosive mover, really quick out of his stance, mirrors guys, plays a great balance, great leverage, arm length, checks that box more. I think he's going to have like 35-inch arms. Like he's a long dude. He's a freak athlete. Now, the caveats. He played nobody.
Yep.
He transferred in for 1 season at Ohio State from San Diego State. Right, San Diego or San Diego State?
San Diego State, yeah.
And so he played nobody there.
Right.
And he also appeared to take a really big leap from where he was at San Diego State to where he was in the first 5 games again at Ohio State. So you're drafting a guy based off of 5 games against like Michigan State. I think he played Iowa.
Well, he started the full season last year
at San Diego State.
No, at Ohio State.
No, I think this is his first year at Ohio State.
No, it was his second.
Oh, then I got to go back and watch
You got to watch more.
So he improved a lot, is the point.
Okay.
From this year to last year. So was that competition? Was he going to keep it up? And he played a half against Oregon. He did give up a pressure and a half against Oregon, but then he got hurt, and then he's been out ever since. So it's a risk. It's you're banking on 5-game sample, basically.
Okay. What have we said about the tackle position going back to like last offseason?
Yeah, it's
half measures.
It's a half measure. It's a risk, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It's a risk. Now, would you feel better because the tape?
And yeah, he was a full-time starter at Ohio State last year. So you need to go back and watch that.
I got to watch that because from what I've heard, and I'm going off of what Brendan Thorne wrote in his write-up about him, he was not this level of player.
I can just give you his numbers. I can't tell you off the top of my head. He allowed 15 pressures with 8 penalties last year.
Yeah, so he got a lot better, and has made a real big leap, and then didn't play the tough part of their schedule. So you're really banking on you're getting the player that dominated against lesser
Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, Michigan State, and Iowa.
So Iowa usually has some pretty good defensive linemen, though.
They allowed like 40 points a game this year.
Okay, but they usually have pretty good defensive lines. Maybe they don't this year. But
so you're drafting him off 27 pass block snaps against Iowa.
I don't disagree. It's not it's a risky thing, but we have to talk about it.
We have to talk about it. No, you're right. We have to talk about it. I would say
usually this is you telling me I have to talk about it.
Wouldn't, and it's a little bit different.
Oh, Notre Dame's gonna get rolled. In this
Yeah, they
game.
are.
Yeah.
Do you want to draft Dominique Easley to protect Drake May?
It's way different than that.
So
Dominic Easley was like.
I need to see how bad the knee injury is. It hasn't been reported exactly what it was.
Yeah, because it's college and
they're weird. Well, because they don't have to put out injury reports.
Yeah.
There's some chatter that it might have been really bad.
Okay, but
if you have
there's
a guy
difference
with
between one really catastrophic injury and then like
if you have a guy with a
time
completely reconstructed knee, that is a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'm just saying, for other teams makes sense. Certainly.
Yeah.
The Patriots cannot afford. Let's put it this way. Is it worth the risk that his knee blows up again and now you burned that pick? When there are other tackles who have similar ceilings, maybe not the same floor, but similar ceilings on the table.
Are there similar ceilings? He's really good.
You don't think Banks has a similar ceiling? You don't think Campbell, if his arms are long enough, has a similar ceiling?
I think Banks is definitely a safer pick. I don't think he has a similar ceiling.
I want a safe pick.
I think Josh Simmons has like real, like all pro caliber ceiling.
I want to. What about Connerly?
No.
I want a safe pick. I don't want to do this whole thing again where we don't know who the left tackle is week to week for 3 years.
Let me ask you this. It's valid. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If they go out in free agency and they sign Cam Robinson or they signed Ronnie Stanley.
Then just make Cam Robinson your tackle and draft your future left tackle next year.
Okay, but you wouldn't take Josh Simmons on day 2 as like this project, you know what I'm saying? Like this,
they can't really afford to be using top 100 picks on guys that aren't going to play.
All right, fair enough. It's just hard to deny.
Go get Caden Proctor next year. At that point,
it's just hard to deny.
No,
the tape was incredible.
He makes sense for some teams.
I was like, this is crazy. Like
if this was like 5 years ago when you knew Nate Solder was towards the end and you had talent elsewhere on the offensive line, sign me the hell up. For where this team's at right now, they cannot use top 100 picks on guys with medical flags and guys that won't play or aren't designed to play in the upcoming season. Can't do it. Can't afford to do it.
Okay. I had
That's how I feel.
I had to bring it up.
We have to talk about it. We have to give our takes. We gave our takes on him. Although you're suddenly so in on a guy that played nobody, but you still won't give Ashton Genty the Oregon game. I find that interesting. Oregon's defense a lot better than Iowa's defense.
He was very impressive. I hate throwing out comps, you know that. I hate throwing out like crazy comps, but like one name that just kind of came to mind just watching him was Tyron Smith. Like he was that dominant.
All right.
Against nobody, but he was that dominant.
It would be great if they had the flexibility to take that risk. I don't think they do.
Yeah.
Especially if it's still Elliott Wolf.
I hear you.
I don't think they do. I have one recency bias guy for you.
Okay, give me two.
Matthew Golden. So I know you like Isaiah Bond.
Yeah. No, he was impressive.
I might like Golden.
I thought you were going to say Cam Scattaboo.
Well, obviously. Should be a Patriot. But no, I liked what I saw. So Matthew Golden, maybe this is where we meet in the middle. Because last week I asked you, what does Isaiah Bond do well besides be fast? And you couldn't give me an answer.
I don't have an answer.
You don't have an answer.
I don't.
What does Matthew Golden do well? One, he's bigger.
Yeah,
he's built for the NFL.
Yep.
I think he has more positional versatility.
Yep.
And I think he's a better route runner. I don't know that he's a great route runner, but I think he's better.
His body control and obviously his ability to win above the rim with his length is impressive.
And I think he can play the Z or the slot. He gives you some flexibility. He's still explosive. I don't know that his 40 is going to be as good as Isaiah Bond's, but I would put him in the explosive. We were talking about Marvin Mims earlier.
Yeah.
It was a little. I have to watch him a little closer.
I don't know if he's quite as fast as Marvin Mims.
No, but he's fast. I wouldn't say he's like, remember we said Ted McMillan isn't slow, but he's not fast?
Yeah.
I'll call Matthew Golden fast.
Okay.
Right now, he's projected to be a day 3 pick. I don't think that stands.
No.
He's going to be a day 2 guy, maybe more like late second, early third. But again, shouldn't be the only pick at wide receiver. Definitely shouldn't be the only pick. But if you go out and you get a DK Metcalf, so let's say they can't trade up
and get
for Ibuka, right?
Yeah.
Matthew Golden, I think, would be another really good answer.
Yeah, Matthew Golden is.
If he comes out, he is a true junior. I could see him waiting.
Yeah.
So that caveat exists.
So he's going to be in that same category, and then we got to go. But he's going to be in the same category, to me, Matthew Golden, as like the Trey Harris's. I can't pronounce the kid from Stanford's name.
Shoot, I can't do it off the top of my head.
Manor.
Io Manor,
Io Manor. The Miami kid, Restrepo.
Oh, I really like Restrepo.
Yeah, Restrepo.
I might put Restrepo and Golden.
Savion Williams, like they're all going to be in like this day 2 bucket. Like it's going to be McConkey, Polk, Keon Coleman all over again.
I might put Restrepo and Golden like a step ahead of guys like A.O. Manor and Trey Harris.
Restrepo reminds me a lot of Khalil Shakir, which is a compliment, by the way.
I have a super lazy comp for Xavier Restrepo.
What?
I have a super lazy comp for Xavier Restrepo. It's Ricky Pearsall.
Okay.
Remember my whole thing last year was Ricky Pearsall plays the position angry?
Yeah.
Yeah, Xavier Restrepo.
Kind of Khalil Shakir. It's a little.
I guess.
I see a little Khalil Shakir with him. Anyways, all right.
Restrepo's also bigger.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's going to be a good player in the league. Okay, so that does it for us here. We're going to go watch Georgia Notre Dame here, I'm sure, in a second. And and we're going to have plenty of this draft talk. We got a ton of emails.
Plenty more coming.
Thank you so much for all the emails. We didn't get to quite all of them, but I tried to bake them all into the show.
4 more months to ask these questions.
And look, there's a lot of you guys that are emailing in that have these elaborate, like, bullet point off-season plans. Like, I would love to read those emails on the air. It's just not going to be great radio, folks. So I apologize, but your plans are all great.
Concise.
Okay?
Come with one take.
Yeah. Give us an email. Give us a shout. We love hearing from you guys, but I'm just got to get that there. And one last time, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. We will see you guys next week. Really quick note about next week. I think we're going to be moving to Wednesdays next week for the rest of the offseason. So we're going to take the noon to 2 PU time slot on Wednesday that Patriots Unfiltered usually occupies, and that's going to be your Catch-22 time slot. So noon to 2 moving forward on Wednesdays. We'll make sure to tease that and plug it plenty on Twitter so you guys know where to find us. We'll see you guys then. Bye.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.